Michael Fabiano.
Welcome to the official, unofficial start of the fantasy football season. It is the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association Expert League Drafts. My name is Glenn Colton from FantasyAlarm and Colton and the Wolfman, and I am honored to share the booth with two Hall of Famers today, FSGA Hall of Famer Rick Wolf and the president of FantasyAlarm, and a man who needs no introduction, frankly, in fantasy football circles, FSWA Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano. Start with you, Fabs. Just a pleasure to be here. You got to be jazzed up.
Yeah, man. Dude, listen, we've all had a miserable offseason so far, right? I mean, with coronavirus and everything that's going on, so it's nice to get into some fantasy football. I'm rocking my Tony Dorsett jersey. I know you got a Cowboys jersey on as well. Yeah. So we're making Rick Wolf's life hell right now. Absolute
It's my mission in life.
Oh, my God. Here we go. Cowboys all the time. Cowboys. I let you take Zeke last night, and now we got this going on today. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure CeeDee Lamb you're going to be praying for going in the second round. Take him in the second round. He's a Cowboy. Oh, my God.
Well, and, we're going to have some fun.
It'll be back to the days when or you arrived at 11 Broadway to have your interview with CBS Sports, and you were sitting in front of my office there waiting to meet Peter Pezaris and Michael Gersh. So
dude,
just ready for that all to get going.
20 years ago, Rick. That was over downtown, man, Battery Park area of New York City. I'll never forget it.
It's good stuff. Well, Michael Fabiano rocking the 33 in old blue for Tony Dorsett. I'm rocking the 22 for Emmitt Smith, two Cowboy running back Hall of Famers. We'll see which one of our experts gets the current bell cow running back, Zeke Elliott. And we do have 14 teams in this FSGA Expert League. It is a PPR league, and it has certain interesting rules. Most importantly, the top three teams by record make the playoffs, and then it is the three teams with the most points. That is a big deal. Michael Fabiano, do you draft differently when you know the points are so critical?
No, man, I'm always trying to draft the best team possible regardless. But I think that is a great rule because let's be honest, there is a lot of luck involved in fantasy football. We all know we've been playing for a long time. And, when you run up against a team that puts up 200 points and you score 164 and it's a great week, those points got to matter. So I like the format.
All right. And Wolfman, it's not only right here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, but FantasyAlarm, team led by Howard Bender, is making sure this is available for folks at live stream as well.
Yeah, so people can go to Twitter. They can go to at SiriusXM Fantasy or at FantasyAlarm or many other places now that the stream is out there. And, of course, it's on the FantasyAlarm.com homepage because we're proud of it. And, special shout out to Matt Sells, who really has dominated the production of these drafts so far, and certainly does that for our team.
All right, that's great. Follow along on the live stream here on the air, and check out folks on Twitter as they make their picks. The 14 experts we have going today competing. The first pick, Grace Note Sports, John Marash will have the privilege of making the first pick. FantasyAlarm, Fanjections, Mark Taylor, and Ryan Hallam with that critical second pick. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot. EV Analytics, Derek Carty, probably the simplest pick to make in the entire draft. We'll talk to him about that. In the 4-hole, it's Yahoo Sports, Joe Nazaro and Mike Graben. The Crown League is at 5, Matt Sposta and Derek Siskin. Fantasy Data at 6, Dustin Sullivan, Barry Golumbek. Prize Picks at 7 with Adam Wexler and Dylan Cooper. CBS Sports Digital with Chris Towers and Ben Gretsch at 8. The Sherpa Fantasy Sports, Scott Swaine, one of my personal favorites to cover. He always does some really interesting strategies. Look forward to talking to him and see what he does at 9. Fan Draft with Randy Lesline is at 10. Sports Info Solutions, Corey March, Rob Doherty at 11. Vila Wood with Kevin Vila and Brandon Flowers at 12. TeamRankings.com, Jason Lisk and Seth Trackman at 13. And On the Wheel, DFS Karma, Travis Waters, and Anthony Carson. Fabs, which one of the picks in the first round of those 14 are you really interested to see which way somebody goes? Because the top 3 are pretty clear. Top 5, not that much, to sort of guess about. But after that, it gets interesting.
Yeah, I'm always interested to see who takes Michael Thomas, right? Because it's going to be 3 running backs. At least you would think it would be the top 3 guys there. And then at 4 overall, Yahoo, do you go with Michael Thomas or do you say I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara? Because running back is going to be so important maybe this year more than any other year, especially with the coronavirus situation going on. You want to have that top featured back, at least one, potentially two. So I'm always interested to see where Thomas goes because I've seen him go as high as 3. I've seen him go as low as 8. And that's going to be a big one for me too. And also, who's the number 2 wide receiver picked in this draft? There's a lot of options, right? Could be Nuke Hopkins, could be Devontae Adams. We shall see.
All right, very interesting. Rick Wolf, we were in the draft yesterday in the Champions League. We took 3 running backs in the first 3 picks. Anybody going to do that?
Somebody will do that. I mean, with 14 people, you're likely to have a lot of different strategies playing out at one time. The thing that I'll be interested to see is who gets shut out at different positions. Like, who's the guy who doesn't get that 3rd running back because they just run out? Who's the guy who doesn't get his 3rd wide receiver because they just run out? Who's the guy who doesn't get his tight end or his quarterback because they just run out? We saw that with the different teams yesterday. We saw Nando DeFino run out on quarterbacks. We saw Digger run out on running backs. We saw the wide receivers run out on some of the other guys. And that's what I'm going to be watching. And also got to watch the runs. Love to see what's happening where guys panic a little bit and then take their quarterback a little too early, or there's a run of 5 quarterbacks in a row because people are scared they're not going to get theirs. I love the fear factor of a draft.
Great stuff. Well, all the picks will start coming fast and furious. Rick Wolf from Fantasy Alarm, Michael Fabiano from the NFL Network and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, and of course Glenn Colton here bringing you all the action. We get back, we'll have the picks, we'll have a special message from the FSGA chairwoman Stacey Stern, and we will have all the analysis. Don't worry, it's fantasy football season on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Okay, clear.
Okay, clock started.
Very good.
Clock started.
Yeah, clock started. Yep.
Yeah, so the way this works is we can actually chat during the
where
break
you guys
on the live stream, talk
course.
smack, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Just when you hear the music that we're coming back on air, then
well, they'll all hear us say we got a minute back or we're coming back in 10. They'll all hear that. Cool. So you guys can chit chat about whatever and just go.
All righty then.
Have I mentioned I like that jersey, Fabs?
I don't think you have, actually.
There you go.
You want to say that again?
I'm totally jealous. I want a 12.
I got a stall back too, bro. And I never wear jerseys.
No,
I got a stall back. Yes, I do. I'll bring it out for the second hour. How about that? Look at Rick. Right. Oh,
yeah. When is this over?
You only got 3 hours left, bro.
We do the baseball drafts. They're 5-hour coverage.
Wow.
I don't mind having another Cowboy fan around me for like a segment, but to have the 2 of you guys for 3 hours is not going to be easy.
Listen, Rick, you love both of us. Come on, man. Come on.
I do. I just don't love the Cowboy talk.
You know what he's saying? He's saying
I don't mind the Cowboys even, but I just don't like all the talk about one team. I mean, can we mix it up a little? Talk about 32 teams.
Meanwhile, yesterday when we were ready to talk about drafting Bobby Trees, no, you didn't want to draft a Ram, your own team. So
Yeah, but that was for a different reason. I didn't want to hear anybody say Bobby Trees on the air. Just, I mean, please, when he gets drafted today, please, neither of you guys say Bobby Trees.
I agree so much, Rick. I'm so over that nickname already.
Chat real quick.
Super lame.
Wait, Rick, what's your team? You're a Rams fan?
I'm a Rams fan because Namath signed there in 78. Namath's been my hero since I was 5. So,
so when did you start watching football?
Yeah, well, Super Bowl III.
Before television.
I was 5 years old, sitting watching it by myself, to be honest.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Namath was the man. So, and then, of course, Namath is a big part of what happens in my world with Sportsline too. So,
yeah. Yep.
You ever hear about the Brady Bunch moment?
I have not.
It's pretty good. There was a mass exodus the day we launched Sportsline because I'll just say this out loud. Levy was a little bit unpredictable, will be the word I use. So there was a mass exodus, 16 people left. We only had 33 people in the company. So 16 people left we had a Waldorf Astoria launch and all that. And I was in Waldorf Astoria, helping with the demo. We'll catch the end of this.
Yes. Break. I got a name and story actually for you too later.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Stay tuned, folks, for the next break.
The live stream continues.
FantasyAlarm.com.
All right, 5 seconds.
Hear pick-by-pick coverage of the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM and watch the live stream at SiriusXM Fantasy or on websites of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association.
All right. We are minutes away from the first picks to be made in the FSGA Experts Draft, the American Conference. Glenn Colton, Rick Wolf, Michael Fabiano bringing you all the action, all the analysis. Very excited to see. We know pretty much who John Morash is going to pick at 1, but then it gets interesting right after that. We'll have all the picks, but first, a welcome message from none other than the chairperson of the FSGA herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Stern, chair of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Welcome to the 2020 Fantasy Football Draft Week, powered by SiriusXM, FantasyAlarm, and RT Sports. With the world postponing and canceling events due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the FSGA Summer Conference was no exception. This gave us the opportunity to get creative and expand our expert leagues drafts. Thanks to the innovative minds of Rick Wolf and Howard Bender and the team at FantasyAlarm, Digger Turnbull of Fantasy Sports Solutions, Tim Jensen and the team at RT Sports, and Matt Deutsch and Rob Tuzet of SiriusXM, an entire week of fantasy football drafts with your favorite personalities will be broadcast on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports. And be sure to check out the FSGA.org, where fans can catch all of the action live through Zoom. A huge shout out to our sponsors, Prize Picks, Vela Wood, and FanDuel, for making this week of additional drafts, more experts, and deeper content a reality. Tonight kicks off our American Conference League, where the winner will earn their seat in the 2021 FSGA Champions League. Good luck to all of the participants.
A great introduction from the First Lady of Fantasy, now the real First Lady of Fantasy, the chairperson of the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Yesterday, Rick Wolf, you and I had the privilege of drafting in the 3-hole with Stacy Stern. Is there really any doubt what's going to happen when we're about to have this first pick?
You know, I'm just going to say out loud, yesterday I got overruled way too many times by Stacy, so she might not be so good with me anymore. We might not be friends now that she made 5 or 6 picks after that. But painfully, obviously, there's no place else to go with this pick, and I think it does help you get a better position in the draft by getting McCaffrey.
All right, with that, Grace Note Sports, John Morash, you are on the clock. Will you have the greatest surprise in fantasy football, or are you going chalk right here? What are you going to do?
I'm going chalk. Don't overthink it. So with the first pick, Grace Note will select Christian McCaffrey.
Excellent. Grace Note goes with Christian McCaffrey. Those picks will be made on rtsports.com. You can follow the board, rtsports.com/FSGA-American. Second pick, I don't think there's really any analysis to do with McCaffrey's number 1, but it gets a little interesting here with the second pick. Fantasy Alarm and FanJactions, Ryan Hallam. Which one of the 2 stud backs left on the board are you going with?
I've been thinking about this for a couple days. There's Zeke to make you happy. There's Saquon Barkley, who's just an absolute beast. But with the PPR format, and Elliott does catch some passes, but there's no just debating Barkley. He makes the offense go. So with the second pick at Fantasy Alarm, we're going Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley, the second pick. Michael Fabiano, if you had the second pick, would you have done what Ryan Hallam just did?
No doubt. No doubt about that. As much as I love Zeke Elliott, sometimes you have to put that bias behind you and make the move that makes the most sense. And I would not be surprised if Saquon Barkley is the RB1 in 2020. I simply wouldn't. If you look at what he did at the end of last season, after he was back to 100% because he had that high ankle sprain that sort of hindered him during the middle of the season, he was back to being Saquon. And that Giants offensive line got better in the offseason. The offense could end up being very, very good. So I like this move a lot.
All right, there you go. Derek Carter, you are in the 3-hole. You're well known for your advanced analytics. You come up with new theories, new ways to play the games. You're incredibly successful. What are you going to do at pick 3? So we can't really – there we go. Hello, Derek.
There we go. I'm going to be a chicken. I'm going to go with Zeke Elliott. I think Michael Thomas is going to outscore Elliott this year, but I think Zeke is probably the right pick here, so that's what I'm going to do.
All right,
Derek,
Zeke
there's
Elliott.
nothing chicken about that. That's smart, my friend. No chicken. That's all smart.
Oh, stop.
That is absolutely smart. But leaving aside the Cowboy talk, Rick Wolf, it's not a comparison of Michael Thomas and Zeke Elliott. It's a comparison of Zeke Elliott and whatever wide receiver you get, and Michael Thomas and whatever running back you get, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair. And, look, the way we play, the smart system, it's long, since the 2003 Roto-World magazine with Matthew Berry, written by us. We've had this 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds. And you just every time I go away from that, the team is just not as good. So, stick with the running backs, keep them early, and then pick up the wide receivers later. You'll get good value.
There you go.
Can we also remember that Zeke already has coronavirus? So you're safe, man. No corona for the rest of the season for Zeke.
Well, I hope we can say that about everyone.
I'm 100% sure you can't get it again. So just saying, not that I want to do a whole doctor thing here, and I certainly don't want to get into this too much.
Or that you don't want Zeke to get it again.
There's no indications that you can't get it again. All right, here we go.
All right, well, let's not have the medical. This is an escape for us, for enjoying, for our listeners and for the fans, people watching the live stream, some fantasy football, and it starts to get a little interesting at pick 4. Who's going to be the first one to go off the board, go wide receiver? Wouldn't be a crazy thing to do. Mike Rabin, you're at 4 for Yahoo Sports. What are you doing?
We are going with Alvin Kamara.
Very nice. In the live stream, puts up the jersey, Alvin Kamara. Talk to us quickly, Kamara versus his teammate Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas had an amazing season last year. Hard to think that he can, or it's tough to think that he can reproduce that. Maybe a little bit of arm, maybe Breeze's arm has gone away a little bit. So we think that maybe Kamara will play a bigger role in this offense, and high scoring division. We felt like Kamara was the best choice here. Last year we took McCaffrey at the first pick, and that paid off. And like I said, this division, we feel like this is the one to be in with our first pick.
All right, going straight through the picks. Let's go to number 5, the Crown League. Matt Sposto, Derek Siskin. Who's going to make the pick?
Hey, guys. So we just got sniped on our Kamara pick, but I think we're also excited about Dalvin Cook here. Obviously, there's a bit of uncertainty around contract, but he's a beast, and we're going to ride the horse. So going Dalvin Cook here.
All right, Fabs, how worried are you about Dalvin Cook and the holdout situation?
So we had Tom Pelissero on Fantasy Dirt last week with myself and Mike Dempsey, and you have to remember that there's a scenario that sort of comes about from the new CBA where holding out is not going to do Cook a whole lot of favors, because there's a scenario where he could end up missing time and then be a restricted free agent next year. So ultimately, the Vikings could still keep him. So at the end of the day, both sides are going to want to get this deal done. I was in a draft that we have going on right now, a best ball draft, and I took Dalvin Cook with the 4th overall pick. I think he'll be fine.
All right, very good. From Dalvin Cook at number 5, Fantasy Data, Dustin Sullivan, Barry Golumbach. Who's going to be pick number 6? Barry, you need to unmute, man.
Yep, there we go. So, glad that I didn't have to choose about Cook, by the way. That was definitely a concern going into this. Going to go for a little bit of a what might be deemed a reach, but really like the second half. And from a PPR standpoint, I think that we're going to be happy with this. So we're going to go with Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon, number 6. Fabiano, analyze.
Number 1, Barry, I love the website. It's awesome. All you guys do a great job, but I'm on Fantasy Data constantly. Love the site. Now, Derrick Henry obviously is probably the other running back that you were thinking about at this point, but considering he doesn't really catch many passes out of the backfield, Joe Mixon is the better of the 2 guys. There's also been some talk that Mixon could also hold out. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But when you look at the second half of what he did last season, I mean, he was one of the best running backs in fantasy football. I don't know if I could have taken Mixon over Michael Thomas here, but hey, man, be bold or go home, right?
I've got some same concerns, if I'm being honest. So I was, thought about it for sure, but happy with our pick.
Got it.
All right, there you go. From pick six running backs in a row. Pick 7, and I have a feeling it's about to change. What are we going to do there, Adam Wexler, Dylan Cooper? I think you're on mute as well, Dylan.
At Prize Picks, we try to be the best in something, so we're going to be the best at receiver. Michael Thomas is our selection at 7.
Okay, Michael Thomas at 7. Rick Wolf, I know that you would want to go running back, but after the top 6 running backs off the board, you got to be comfortable here.
It's tough. I mean, I think at this point you have to go with Thomas. I really like the Mixon pick. I think it's a little earlier than we've seen him go in a lot of drafts, and I like the go get your player. So I certainly love that. There's really isn't much analysis about a Michael Thomas. I mean, the guy is going to be the best in the game. You know, he had projected for 162 targets, for gosh sakes. So if he has 120 catches and 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, how can anybody else have numbers like that?
So Fabs, quick question. Did I read properly that Michael Thomas has upside because he actually never has had 10 touchdowns in a season? Do I have that right?
Upside? Hell, he's coming off of one of the greatest seasons that any receivers ever had.
That's of course the point I'm making.
I feel like the only argument against Thomas is that, like, can he possibly duplicate what he did last year again? Because that was an amazing season, all-time record for catches in the league. So I can understand sort of the regression argument to a point, but you also have to figure in every single year Michael Thomas is at worst a top 8 wide receiver, and I would think he's at worst going to be a top 3 wide receiver in 2020 again.
Can't argue with that. All right, 1 wide receiver, 6 running backs off the board. The 8th pick, CBS Sports. Chris Towers, Ben Gretsch. Are you going running back or are you going wide receiver back-to-back here?
Yeah, we're going to make it another running back. And, 8 was a tough spot for us. We weren't sure exactly which way to go, but we were hoping Miles Sanders would be there at 8. That was kind of the crux of our early draft plan. He's there at 8, so that's the direction we're going.
All right, Miles Sanders at number 8, the 7th running back off the board. Fabs, he worries me just a little bit because of how good Boston Scott was and a guy who's never played the whole year, but the upside's huge.
I love him. He is my breakout running back for 2020. When you look at what he did at the end of last year, it was about a 5-game stretch without Jordan Howard, averaged over 20 touches a game, averaged over 21 fantasy points a game, proved that he could be a bell cow. And the Eagles haven't done anything, right? I mean, like, it's Boston Scott, it's Corey Clement. They didn't add Carlos Hyde. They didn't add Devontae Freeman. I mean, it's Miles Sanders' job. And let's not forget, the reason why we really didn't hear a lot about him in college is because there was that Saquon dude at Penn State. And so Sanders only had a chance to be the featured back for his final collegiate season. And by the way, he was dynamite. I love him late in the first round.
All right. Kudos to CBS Sports, the Fabiano.
Yeah, and kudos to them for being able to use their mute button.
Yeah,
congratulations on being able to get off mute.
All right. We are on a live stream at the same time that we are doing the broadcast here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You can catch that live stream. Check out the Twitter feed at Fantasy Alarm, at SiriusXM Fantasy, and other sites. Pick number 9 is our friend, the Sherpa, Scott Swaine. Always fun to cover a draft you're in, Scott. What are you going to do at 9?
So I was between 3 guys with this pick, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, all 3 of those guys very talented, but I think Derrick Henry is probably the surest thing among the 3, so I'm going to play it safe, boring, and conservative and make Derrick Henry my first pick.
All right, Derrick Henry off the board, the 8th running back to come off the board out of 9 picks. Michael Fabiano, how worried are you about the lack of receptions for Henry in a PPR?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. He didn't catch a whole lot of passes last season, and he still was 5th in fantasy points among running backs. I mean, what did he have, like 14 catches, 18 catches last season, and it didn't matter. I feel like you need to realize when you draft Derrick Henry that the first half of the season, there may be some inconsistent stat lines, but then when you get into the second half of the season and the stretch run, when the Titans start loading him up with carries, that this guy obviously has proven to be a league winner. So, I get it. The catches aren't there. It doesn't necessarily matter with him because he's going to rush for so many yards, and he is going to be the goal line guy. So you can almost guarantee there to be double-digit touchdowns from Derrick Henry once again.
All right, there you go. Derrick Henry off the board. The running back run continues. Pick 10, Fan Draft, and Randy Lessline. More running backs, or are we going back to wide receiver?
This is a bit of a reach. I was hoping Joe Mixon was going to slide to me, and the FanDraft's going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Ooh, see, that is the Wolfman theory of go get your guy. Wolfman, this is these guys just living the way you want to live. How do you feel about just being super aggressive there and reaching up and getting CEH?
I do like going to get your guy, and if that's your guy, that's great. He's not my guy, so that's that's part of I prefer the early pick of Mixon to the pick of Helaire here, but it depends on who you get next, because if he gets a steady bell cow running back second, then we can live with the question marks about how much a rookie can learn from the playbook if they have a shortened preseason or a shortened training camp, and how much they can learn virtually, and how much Damian Williams, who should have been the Super Bowl MVP, is minimized by this guy's talent.
All right, well, we will certainly talk about the question of handcuffing as the draft moves along and how early one might have to jump up. Let's get through the rest of this first round in the 11 hole. It's Sports Info Solutions. Corey March, Rob Doherty, what are you guys doing?
Oh man, tough call here. A couple wide receivers on the board calling my name, but it seems like the strategy is to grab a running back while they're there, and a couple of guys standing out at that position too. We're gonna go Josh Jacobs. Like the direction that the Las Vegas Raiders are going with their offense. I feel like they had a good draft this year, added some good weapons. Liked what I saw from Jacobs last year. Feel like they'd be smart to get him more involved. He looked really good in the pass game, and I feel like he was underutilized there. So they'd be smart to feed him the ball in the pass game, and they do. A lot of PPR upside, so hoping for that.
All right, Michael Fabiano, I like it. What say you?
So I'm not going to say anything bad about this pick, number one, because I'm a big fan of Sports Info Solutions. Number two, Corey, that Jets hat, I love it. That's the logo the Jets should have, okay? I don't like this logo that they go in on. That's the Jets logo from back in the 80s. But, hey, listen, this is a guy who is going to be a bell cow back, right? And we've heard Mike Mayock, who's the GM in Las Vegas, say that they want to get him more involved as a pass catcher. And there were some of the moves that they made that you're thinking, well, okay, is that actually going to happen with Lynn Bowden? Jalen Richard is still in the mix as well. But to me, Josh Jacobs could end up being a top 10, top 12 fantasy running back in PPR leagues this upcoming season. No question about that.
All right. Now we have 10 running backs, one wide receiver off the board. Pick 12, Vila Wood, Kevin Vila, and Brandon Flowers. You guys going to keep the running back run, or are you going back receiver? What are you doing?
How's it going, guys? Just a quick note in the Cowboys fans. Rick, be happy that I'm drafting instead of Kevin. I'm pretty sure he wants me to go with Dak for the first overall pick. But with our first pick. I think I'm going to have to go DeAndre Hopkins here. I generally try to front load with receivers anyway as a method, and I think on the turn, I think I could see some value at receivers still, or at running back still there.
All right, let's get through the rest of this first round, Fabs. We'll hear your analysis of the last couple of picks. DeAndre Hopkins is pick 12 in the first round. We have TeamRankings.com, Jason Lisk, Seth Trackman, who is the 13th player off the board in this FSGA American Conference.
Well, the running backs have been flying off the board, and I had a couple targets, Mixon and Sanders, that I was just hoping would get here, but they aren't. And I'm not going to reach at running back. I'm in an underdog position. I'm not going to chase with the 12th best running back off the board. I'm going to take an upside play. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill and think the Chiefs offense will be back to number one status this year. And Hill, who was hurt last year, I think he bounces back, and Mahomes has a big year with Edwards-Helaire there. I think this offense is more like 2018, and I'm taking Hill.
All right, Tyreek Hill goes off the board before Devontae Adams. After the break, we're going to break that one down. The final pick of the first round, DFS Karma, Travis Waters. Just make your first round pick live on air. You're, of course, on the wheel. You get two, but just tell us who your first round pick is.
All right. So what I was mentioning before we went live here is Anthony's a little under the weather, and he also picked Zach Ertz really high in this draft last year. So we're not messing him too bad right now. So we got Ben, our NFL lead on DFS Karma, but we're going to be going with Nick Chubb as the first of our back-to-backs picks there.
There you have it. The first round is complete. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Michael Thomas, Miles Sanders, Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, and Nick Chubb. That's the 14 first-rounders in this FSGA American Conference draft. The draft will continue. You check it out, the live stream. Go to FantasyAlarm.com. Go to at FantasyAlarm, at SiriusXM Fantasy. You can see the live stream. When we get back, the picks will keep coming, but we're going to talk about how certain of the wide receivers fell and what the strategy is going to be for the few teams that didn't get themselves a running back in the first round when the coverage of the FSGA draft continues on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Okay.
Sir, keep picking. Keep going, man. Keep picking.
Yep. All right. Travis, keep firing.
1 second here. Pull it back up.
I got to tell you, that's how it keeps going. 11 running backs in the first round. The zero running back theory is dead for now, huh?
Yeah, Ben and I were like texting back and forth like crazy because everybody that he was having at 14 was gone. I think like Josh Jacobs and a few other ones there that we thought would be there. But with the second one, we're going to go ahead and go with Devontae Adams for the second one.
You guys don't have to do the announcing. You can just keep
guys. Just input them onto the site from here on in.
And they'll go to you guys throughout periodically. Hey, you made a weird pick here. Let's talk about it. Stuff like that.
Super. Yeah. So what the goal will be, we'll just be doing a lot of the analysis. The three of us during the course of the broadcast. We'll bring in everybody at some point during the broadcast. Drew will tell us who to bring in, and during the live stream portion, the breaks, just smack talk amongst yourselves.
Chubb and Adams is a nice turn at 14 teams.
Yeah,
I think.
Graven, I was going to ask you because you held up that jersey for Kamara. Please tell me you have a jersey for everybody you're drafting today.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah, that was amazing.
He has everybody behind him right now.
Travis, the only one I have nearby me is Garoppolo, and I will not be drafting Garoppolo today.
Hey,
Travis, you got to make your pick, man.
Easy on my boy.
Let's keep this flying.
I think. What is it not? I'm clicking it. Is it not? Hold on.
You have to hit plus and then draft.
Plus and then draft. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I also had sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying no. I think Ben clicked Kenyon Drake before I said Devontae Adams. So all right. Well. Drake just popped up. All right. So I did not pick Devontae Adams. I went Kenyon Drake. Apologies. That's why it wasn't working for me.
I also had a McCaffrey T-shirt handy, but unfortunately, he didn't slip to number 4.
All right, so yeah, okay.
You got 6 more points that way.
Here's some chatter for the live stream, guys. What's up?
Yeah, let's talking. Start talking.
I thought we were
There's
supposed to
be no running backs left by the end of this round.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So slim
I was coming back in 30.
I had Drake instead of Adams off the board at 2-1.
Yeah, I was about.
Yeah, that was.
Is that a mistake, or did you change it?
No. So Drake is correct.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you made a change.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
Adam's still available.
Yeah, Adams is still available.
But wait, there's more. You get this Ginsu knife when it's 50, you're guaranteed.
All right, guys, 5 seconds for the rejoiner.
Where should you draft Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson in your fantasy football league this season?
Touchdown Ravens! Lamar Jackson with the spin, the sprint, and the score.
Find out during the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
All right, the draft picks are coming fast and furious. We're into the middle of the second round of the FSGA American Conference Draft, a Hall of Fame broadcast booth with Hall of Famers Rick Wolf and Michael Fabiano in the house. Fabiano, I want to run to you right away here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes in the first round, and the 10th pick of the first round, and he's paired with Leonard Fournette. How are you feeling about that tandem as the centerpiece of your fantasy football team?
It's odd because I could see there being a switch there where Fournette was the first round pick and Edwards-Helaire was the second round pick. So in this draft where running backs are going like crazy and Devontae Adams didn't come off the board until the fourth pick in the second round, I really feel like a lot of the guys here are thinking, if I don't get on this bandwagon, man, I am going to be missing out and going to be hurting in terms of the RB2. One pick that I thought was interesting was Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb went last pick overall in the first round to DFS Karma. And Nick Chubb scares the heck out of me. And I love him as a player. I feel like if he's a featured back, this guy is a top potential 5 pick. But when you look at the numbers that he put up when Kareem Hunt came back last year, they were interchangeable. They were averaging 13 points a game. I hope the pick pans out. But Nick Chubb in the first round, even in a 14-team league, that one would concern me just a little bit.
This is, Rick, I want to go to you, Rick Wolf. This is where best ball drafts and season-long drafts are very, very different. This being a season-long draft. If I'm in a best ball draft, I'd love the idea of pairing Chubb and Hunt together. One of them goes off, I'm fine. But I don't think I want to pair them together in a play it out full season league.
You mean you're like afraid to figure out which one you're going to pick because you don't want to run down the game plan from Cleveland? By getting in touch with Mary Kay Cabot before you set your lineup on Sunday mornings.
We're not allowed to talk to Mary Kay Cabot anymore because you actually made her say a name wrong. Go ahead, say it. Come on.
I said Hugh Jackman so many times instead of Hugh Jackson.
As the former coach
started saying it. Yeah.
So she still doesn't talk to you, not seriously. But
yeah, but
can you imagine?
Look, the draft comes to whatever it is. If Chubb is the guy who's the best player that's there, then yeah, you're stuck with getting Hunt a couple rounds early, and then I think figuring it out by looking at the game plans of the local beat writers and talking to people and figuring it out depending on what's happening on that particular day. Is it an all pass day or an all run day? And I think you can figure those things out. FantasyAlarm.com is a great place to figure all those things out.
All right, Michael Fabiano, the last player to go off the board just now to CBS was Chris Godwin. Obviously, a ton of changes in Tampa. They've got Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and they still have Godwin, Evans. They still have 2 other tight ends and Brayton Howard. How confident are you that Chris Godwin is going to stay at the level he was with Jameis flinging the ball everywhere?
Yeah, well, I would think there's going to be some level of regression. I mean, he averaged, nearly 20 fantasy points a game last year. I don't know that that's going to happen, especially when you have a Gronkowski coming in there who's going to certainly get some red zone opportunities from his pal, Tom Brady. And like you mentioned, a lot of mouths to feed there. I do feel like Chris Godwin was well worth a pick here for CBS Sports in the second round. This is sort of where I would project him to go. And I think he'll be tremendous, but you also have to keep in mind that offense is loaded up with offensive talent. I mean, they are unbelievable, right? The Buccaneers probably have one of the 5 best fantasy offenses in the National Football League. Godwin, certainly to me, is a better pick than Mike Evans, who had some really great games last year and overall was very good, but he was a bit up and down. Godwin will be more reliable, more consistent. We know that Tom Brady has always liked to throw to the slot receiver, and I think Godwin will remain the slot guy there, even though they're going to be running a lot of 12. So I like that pick there at the second round.
All right. And right after Godwin, I think a really interesting pick, Rick Wolf, from Prize Picks. They had Michael Thomas in first round. They went Travis Kelce in the second round. The ultimate, when people are zigging, they're zagging. You can't argue with either player and the production you're going to get, but you have to be a little nervous about having no running backs after 2 rounds.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this is one that I couldn't do.
Me either.
I couldn't get my arms around having running backs that wouldn't be good enough. But on the simple projections of the backside of the draft, they're ahead by 30 points over every other pairing.
One of the things
selected already.
Yeah,
so
one of the things
they're
we
getting
will be
their
doing.
points, but
go ahead.
But they're not going to be able to get enough running backs to fill out.
All right. In classic Wolfman self-deprecating fashion, I'm trying to break in to give him kudos and credit, and he just keeps talking over me. So there you go. The Wolfman is running an incredible hillbilly, an incredible sheet where he's tallying the ongoing fantasy production by projections of every team and every player. And as this broadcast goes on, we're going to be able to go to Rick, and he's going to be able to say, all right, this team is projected to have, the best performance from the running backs, receiving points, etc. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Michael Fabiano, first quarterback off the board is Lamar Jackson. Obviously an incredible fantasy football season, incredible season, the MVP of the league last year. But there's still a debate about who the first quarterback off the board should be.
Yeah, I mean, you win either way, right? You get Lamar, you get Patrick Mahomes, regardless. These guys are going to put up tremendous numbers. And I get picking him here. That's just never been my strategy. It really hasn't, because every single year there's so many good quarterbacks who go middle to late rounds. I mean, where was Lamar taken last year? 9th, 10th round. I mean, the year before, where was Mahomes taken? 10th, 11th round. Year before that, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. I mean, the list goes on and on. Where was Dak Prescott drafted last season? How about them Cowboys? So
how about them boys?
I love Lamar Jackson. I feel like as an industry, get the bucket out for Wolf. I feel like as an industry, we were all in on Jackson, and he obviously hit it out of the park. I just can't. I can't take a quarterback this early. That's just my strategy.
All right, there you go. All right.
I feel better. Better get a bucket.
Yeah, get a bucket. You better keep it handy.
Well, we're gonna have some Cowboy fun. Go ahead.
This might play out for the Michael Thomas Kelsey, because 4 of the last 5 picks were not running backs. So, if they get some more guys chasing some wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks here, they could end up salvaging a real solid bell cow running back here. I have a guy in mind, but we'll see if that salvages itself.
All right. The end of the second round goes as follows: Mike Evans, Lamar Jackson, George Kittle, Todd Gurley, Kenny Golladay, and the final pick of the second round, DJ Moore. Michael Fabiano, how do you feel about taking 2 players with your first 2 picks from the same team? Because that's what the Grace Note Sport guys did by taking both Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore.
So I have Allen Robinson, I have Cooper Kupp, I have AJ Brown, I have Robert Woods. I have several wide receivers drafted ranked ahead of DJ Moore, but I don't think there's a big deal when it comes to you have the number 1 running back in fantasy football, and DJ Moore is going to catch 80, 90 balls from Teddy Bridgewater. So that wouldn't bother me at all. There are some people out there that don't like to do that. In that case, there were several other guys out there who I feel like were maybe a little bit better than DJ Moore. But I think this is one of those cases where you go out and get your guy, and clearly Grace Note liked DJ Moore, and they got their guy.
All right. Well, a couple of Chicago Bears go off the board to start the position player run in the third round. And it's not the Bears defense by Rick's friend Jim Belushi. Patrick Mahomes off the board. Mahomes and McCaffrey on the same team. You got to like that. But we'll tell you which of the Chicago Bears went off the board, and we'll tell you some of the strategies that are developing when the team at SiriusXM, Rick Wolf, Michael Fabiano, and Glenn Colton bring you more of the FSGA American Conference Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
We're on break.
All right.
David Montgomery, ladies and gentlemen.
There he is.
Wow.
All right, so we took David Montgomery with our 3rd pick yesterday. So what say you, Michael Fabiano? I know Brad Evans is happy.
He doesn't like it.
I know Brad loves him. I just feel like Gordon is out there. There's just other guys that I would have preferred, over David.
I thought about Gordon.
Montgomery in the 3rd round, you have to be all in on the Bears running the football successfully, and that guy getting 18 to 22 touches every single week.
He had 850 yards or whatever with an absolutely terrible rookie year. I don't think it could be any worse than it was last year. I thought about Gordon too. I think he's good, definitely in a PPR format. I don't know. He doesn't thrill me in Denver. I think they'll still give Lindsey some touches. It was close. I really considered Carson there too, but so many injuries with Seattle was why I ended up going Montgomery. I think he's going to be better this year. And It was a bit of a risky pick. I'm not going to lie, but I like it.
I like it. I'll tell you something interesting, by the way. What happened yesterday is people are chatting on the live stream during the breaks, and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, look who's still on the board!" And all of a sudden, boom, off the board. Boom, off the board.
I noticed this too. Connor just left.
Check the G chat real quick.
And I got to admit, when Jeff Mans was going on and on about how the Colts look like a good defense, I'm like, damn, I actually didn't think about that. I'm in. All right, Fabs, do you have a few best availables off the board for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I got a few.
Oh, and Rick, check your email. We're up in the combo.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, I saw that. I figured it could wait.
It can wait. That's a lot of fun. On Sirius, we're doing that.
That Chubb first round pick is getting thrown under the bus, so I'm going to go over my notes on him real quick here, just a little defense. But yeah, so the Browns got the easy schedule this year. They got the offensive line improvement. His prop right now is at 1275 rushing yards, which is actually equal, I believe, to Zeke. And then of course, Hunt might be seeing time at receiver as well. So that's kind of why we're a little bit higher on the Chubb pick.
I liked it.
I think Chubb will compete for the rushing title without question. He's going to be 100% one-dimensional, and I think he scored twice in those games where Hunt was active.
Here, guys, for the rejoiner.
That was where I'm concerned about him.
Streaming live across the internet on Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association websites. This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
We are into round number 3 at the FSGA American Conference Experts Football Draft here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. First, the second quarterback comes off the board, and 2 Chicago Bears come off the board, David Montgomery and Allen Robinson. And I bet you, Michael Fabiano, that one you like and one you don't. But before we do that, talk to us about some names that we expect to come off the board soon, because they're the best that are out there left for the picking.
So right now, my top guys out there, Cooper Kupp, who I'm surprised hasn't been drafted yet. A.J. Brown also still on the board. Another Rams wide receiver, Robert Woods, is on the board. Juju Smith-Schuster, David Johnson in Houston, Chris Carson also still available as well. So the running back position has gotten quite thin, which we sort of expected, but there's still some really good names at wide receiver available.
There you go. All right, Rick Wolf, David Montgomery, and Allen Robinson. I know what Fabs is going to say, but we're going to let him say it. How do you feel about those 2 picks, second and third in the third round?
Well, I like both players, right? So go after the players that you want. When I said there was a bell cow running back waiting for the Michael Thomas Kelsey group, I was speaking about David Montgomery. I think Chris Carson also could be considered there as a bell cow running back, but everybody else was pretty much gone and has question marks. And to me is confusing as to whether or not they're going to dominate. So that was what my worry was. Robinson, I think, is a little bit earlier than most people would have taken him, but get the player you want. So, he probably knew, hey, that guy's not coming back to me, and I really want that player. And on the way back, there's going to be 6 other wide receivers who I like. So let me get the guy I like. I like the strategy of getting the guy you like.
Rick, you think Robinson was earlier? Like I feel like that was a pretty good bargain in the third round of a 14-team league.
Yeah, I think Robinson I've been doing a lot of drafts on rtsports.com, and Robinson has been going later than that, 4th and even sometimes 5th.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but probably in a 10-teamer, not in a 14-teamer.
In a 10-teamer, yes, that's true. That is true. But Cooper almost always goes before him. So, and there are a number of other wide receivers like Cooper Kupp you already mentioned, and a couple others that go before Robinson. So I would have expected Robinson to go 8 to 10 picks later.
There you go. Well, one of the things, Fabs, I think you'll enjoy this. We're going to talk a lot of Cowboys just to make Rick miserable. Well, Kevin Vila, who with Brandon Flowers is drafting out of the 12 hole, just got a text from Kevin Vila. Brandon, start drafting some Cowboys or you're in deep trouble. So there you go. We like that. Really appreciate that. We'll talk to Brandon in a bit about his team. Chris Carson just goes off the board right here toward the end of the third round. I have to say, Fabs, I really like what Corey March and Rob Doherty did with Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Chris Carson. That's a pretty sweet start.
Chris Carson was tremendous last season. There is no question about whether or not this guy can be a high-end RB2. all of the questions, all of them are about the health, coming off the hip. So if he comes back, and from what we've heard from Pete Carroll, it looks like he should be fine for week 1. And, I get it. Carlos Hyde is there, but Carlos Hyde is basically Rashad Penny, except for, several years older. That's the role he's going to play. Penny likely to start the season on the PUP list. But I like Carson as an RB2. I really do. And I've seen him slide in some drafts, in some mocks that I've done. Lately, his ADP is starting to rise back up a little bit. But Chris Carson as an RB2, I've gotten him as a flex starter in some 10-team leagues. So I feel like he's going to start moving on up, and he is. But as an RB2 here in a 14-team league, I like that pick.
Interestingly, he goes after both David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Wolfman, if you had to put them in order, what order would you put them in?
I would do David Johnson, Carson, Bell for me.
Okay,
so
Fabs.
Sorry.
Let's hear Rick's analysis first.
It's just a matter of playing
time.
All
right, that's good. We're
David
done.
Johnson.
Just kidding.
No, really, I'm sure everybody wants to hear from Fabiano much more.
Man. What's up?
This is what it's like every Tuesday night, for God's sakes. So.
No, but in all seriousness, tell us why you put him in that order.
Let's hear how you love the Cowboy. Actually, he's a Texan, but David Johnson.
How I love, he's playing in Texas. David Johnson, you keep this in mind. Last year in the first 6 games, he averaged over 20 fantasy points a game. In fact, he averaged 20.2 fantasy points per game. The rest of the year, he scored 20.2 fantasy points, which is ridiculous. It's all about his health. It's a lot like Chris Carson. Carlos Hyde rushed for over 1,000 yards last year behind that offensive line. David Johnson is a hell of a pass catcher out of the backfield. They traded away, for some reason, their best offensive option in Nuke Hopkins. David Johnson could end up putting up top 12 numbers at the position. It all has to do with whether or not he could stay on the field. And that's where the big concern is, because if he's out there for 14 games, if he's out there for 16 games, I have no worries at all about David Johnson being at least an RB2.
All right, then talk to us about Le'Veon Bell for a moment, because I think I'm higher than a lot of people on Le'Veon Bell. I mean, last season was a disaster. The quarterback missed time. The line was bad. But they're paying him a ton of money. He's going to get the football. And most fantasy leagues, including this one, don't care if you average 3 yards a carry. It's just how many yards you get, how many touchdowns you get, and how many catches you get.
Yeah, but you like Odell Beckham too, so what the heck?
I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest with you. Anybody that's under Adam Gase's guidance scares me. Like, I don't care. Like, Adam Gase has what is that? Honestly, Rick, tell me, what has Adam Gase done outside of Denver when Peyton Manning was his quarterback? Like, what has he done? What has he done? He's ruined. Hell, he had Ryan Tannehill and Devontae Parker. He couldn't do anything. So and they brought in Frank Gore. Like, Le'Veon Bell to me in a 10-team league is a flex starter or a low RB2. I'm sorry. And I love Le'Veon Bell. He's been neutered in New York. Adam Gase, I don't trust him. The funniest thing about Adam Gase is that eyes with the taco and all this crazy stuff. I don't trust Adam Gase's offense, and I don't trust players in his offense. So,
all right.
And I apologize, prize pickers. I'm just not a big fan of Le'Veon Bell. I think he could have done better.
Well, we'll have the guys from Prize Pick on the air during the course of the show. We'll talk about the strategy there with Le'Veon Bell. I happen to be more of a defender of yours than the Wolfman or Michael Fabiano, but maybe that's not a good thing because these guys are in the Hall of Fame. The end of the third round finishes with 3 wide receivers in this draft: Odell Beckham Jr., Adam Thielen, and Devontae Parker. I'm gonna let the Wolfman talk about Odell Beckham, but Fabs, you brought up Devontae Parker. He was a huge bust, then a huge stud. And to me, I think Fitzmagic was going to be the quarterback at least for most of the season, and he and Parker seem to have a connection.
They do. I feel like a negative Nancy here, though, because I'm talking about regression from everybody. And like Parker, he had that elusive 5th-year breakout. Like, typically in the 5th year, you're like, oh, this guy's done, right? But he and Fitzmagic, they had a great rapport. He looked at him often in the second half of the season. He was one of the top wide receivers in fantasy football. But you are drafting Devontae Parker on the last 8 games of his career, which basically is his ceiling. He played at an elite level. And I don't know that it's going to happen again. I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to start more than half the games for the Dolphins, because the first game that he has a Fitzmagic implosion game with 3 picks, everybody in Miami and everybody in fantasy is going to be like, we want Tua, and they will bring Tua in and Fitzpatrick will be gone. So that's why, like, to me, Parker is a low 2, high 3 at the wide receiver position, depending on sort of how many teams are in your league. And in this draft, he is the number 1 wide receiver of DFS Karma. So, but they have 3 running backs too, so they have a little bit of strength there. I feel like I'm drafting Devontae Parker, expecting that his efficiency is going to decrease from those 8 games that he was so awesome in last season.
All right, the voice of Michael Fabiana, Hall of Famer, joining Hall of Famer Rick Wolf and myself, Glenn Colton, to bring you the FSGA American Conference Experts Draft. We are through into the 4th round of this draft. We've seen a run of running backs go off the board. The wide receivers are starting to go off the board, but we've seen only 2 tight ends go off the board in Kelsey and Kittle. We've seen only 2 quarterbacks go off the board in Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, and we are going to see a lot more of the strategies develop as we continue. 2 more hours, FSGA Draft, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Okay.
Travis, I'm really upset that you sniped Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, me too.
Oh my God. He's gonna be a beast.
Yeah, well, the first one was Ben and I were, like I said, we're just texting back and forth like a million words a minute, and we were deciding between 2 receivers. I was like, listen, I'm wearing the Miami Dolphins hat on this live stream. I'm not gonna not go with Parker. But yeah, Taylor, Ben is huge on Taylor this year, huge.
A nice offensive line there,
and a good defense.
Personally, I don't think Mac is entirely going away, but we shall see.
At this point, we don't know. Sorry, channeling the Jim Belushi again there at the beginning of About Last Night for anybody who wasn't getting that.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody.
Is she a pro? At this point, we don't know. And then she reached under the bed and pulled out a cherry can and started throwing gasoline all over the room. Then she lit it on fire. Was she a pro? At this point, we don't know. Anyway.
Now we want to make sure that we get as much running back depth as possible. Last year was in a situation where our FAAB, we bid like 60% of it on who was it? Ty Johnson with the Detroit Lions, when everybody thought he was the savior to the Detroit Lions. I was like, because we had AJ Green, we drafted AJ Green 2nd round. Of course, that didn't work out. And then we had so many injuries happen to every single person. We had who else did we draft? Darrell Henderson, hoping that Todd Gurley's injuries would reappear, and that didn't work out. So we're just going heavy on running backs this season. We missed playoffs last year by like 3 total points scored. So we're gonna make sure we get there this time.
2017, I think my team would have dominated. OBJ, Zach Ertz, D Hop. Don't love him as much right now.
2017.
It's always the goal to dominate 3 years ago.
Fabs, I got to tell you the Namath story.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So everybody's gone. 16 guys are gone, and I come home, and the next day I come back to Florida, to Fort Lauderdale, and the next day I basically call in and say, I'm thinking about whether I want to continue here or not. I'm going to, IBM will give me my job back in New York, and I'll just push the reset button. And Mike Levy sends Namath over to my house. And Namath comes over to my house, literally knocks on the door. I open the door. It's like the Brady Bunch. There's Joe Namath, and he's holding a football in his hand. And
Rick goes, "Oh, my nose!"
It's signed to my kid. It says, "Hey Matt, hope you stick around, pal." Something like that. And he, comes in, has a beer. We talk for a couple minutes, and then he leaves. And he's like, "Please stay, please stay." And I'm like, "I guess I gotta stay."
I mean, when Joe Willie is in there telling you to stay, you kind of got to stay. Wow, that's
worked out.
My story isn't nearly as good. I was in the bathroom, Colts Bears Super Bowl, taking a leak.
Okay, guys,
Joe Willie,
we're coming here.
Okay, I'll finish after.
It's fantasy football season, and Fantasy Sports Radio has an entire week of experts drafts to help you win.
Todd Gurley will be a colossal bust.
It's FSGA Draft Week, featuring the top fantasy football analysts from the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Find out which players you need to draft and learn winning strategies.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow will be a top 15 quarterback. Great throw by Burrow.
This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft, part of FSGA Draft Week on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Here are your hosts, Glenn Colton and Rick Wolf from Real Time Sports, and Michael Fabiano.
Hour number 2 of the FSGA American Conference Experts Draft. Follow all the action at rtsports.com/FSGA-American. Glenn Colton here with Hall of Famers Rick Wolf and Michael Fabiano, bringing you all of the action. We are almost through the end of 4 rounds, and there are some wide receiver run going on right now. DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, and DJ Chark. Michael Fabiano, DJ and DK seeing a lot of helium so far early in the draft season.
And can we talk about CBS Sports getting A.J. Brown as their 3rd wide receiver in the 4th round? Like, I'm sitting there waiting. I'm like, I must have missed it. He got drafted already, right? And I looked and I'm like, no, he's still there. And the picks keep going, and he's still there, and he's still there. And I'm like, geez, did A.J. Brown get hurt? So that was a great pick. And this is why in a lot of my drafts, I'm going so running back heavy. Look at the wide receivers that are available here in a 14-team league in the 4th round. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, DJ Chark. Hell, I didn't even mention Keenan Allen or Tyler Lockett. They're still on the board too. This is the strategy to have, folks. When you're drafting this season, go running backs heavy in the first couple of rounds, maybe even the first 3. There's going to be good wide receivers out there. I promise you, once you get into that position in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round.
So let's stay with that for a moment, and interested both you, Fabs and Rick, what you think about this. The CBS team with those 3 giant wide receivers, and Godwin, Juju, and A.J. Brown, the only running back they have is Miles Sanders. So are they going to be able to fill in enough production from that RB2, maybe needing fill-ins for injuries, bye weeks, etc.?
Rick, I'll let you take it.
I don't think so. I mean, I think if they had Joe Mixon or Alvin Kamara as the first one, maybe you could salvage that with a couple of others, but I'm not a big fan of Sanders. I know the groupthink in fantasy sports has Miles Sanders basically, being the best running back ever. But, I know the Eagles are looking still to see if they can sign another running back. So, it just seems a little bit weird to me. And the projections certainly don't love the combination of Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, and A.J. Brown compared to some of the other pairings there, like Julio Jones, David Johnson, and Raheem Mostert.
There you go. So, all right. But,
I feel like that team – Go ahead,
Fabs, please.
I feel like that team is going to have to hit on a sleeper in order to make up for that RB2 position. So maybe it's Keyshawn Vaughn, for example, or maybe they're able to get a Kareem Hunt potentially. But other than that, I agree with Rick. It's going to be hard to make up for that RB2 spot, still sort of lingering out there as we get into round 5.
One of the beauties.
Hall of Famer agrees with me. Say that again.
What?
A Hall of Famer in a cowboy jersey.
On, man.
Let's talk about it. Got 2 Hall of Famers in cowboy jersey. That's the way
Rick
it ought
doesn't
to
want
be,
to talk
right?
about it.
He does not.
No,
but
no
one of the
more
beauties of this live stream, guys, that's put on by Fantasy Alarm and all the hard work done by the folks at SiriusXM, you can hear during the live stream, especially at the breaks. We don't like picks. We like picks. The guys who are in the live stream, they're going to jump in. They're going to defend their picks. They're going to say, oh, yeah, maybe I should have gone this way or that way. So you get to see a little behind the scenes of the thinking of the experts that are drafting here today. The 5th round is underway. Terry McLaurin goes first. Mark Andrews goes second to the team of Fanjections, Mark Taylor, Ryan Hallam. Their team so far, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, David Montgomery, Tyler Lockett, and now Mark Andrews. I can't figure out, Fabs, where I come out on Andrews. I know the ceiling is very high, but it costs a 4th or 5th round pick to get him. And I'm not sure I'm that convinced that he's so much better than the guys you can get a little bit later, the Ingrams, the Henrys. Where do you come out?
That's where I'm at too. I was in. I saw a draft where Andrews was the third round pick. My pal Mike Dempsey was in a draft, and to me that's too rich for my blood. And even in the 5th round, and I get it, it's a deeper league. I would rather go after somebody that's going to cost me a little bit less, like for example, a Hunter Henry or a Tyler Higbee or an Evan Ingram. And if I can't get one of those guys, you've always got Rob Gronkowski or Austin Hooper on there. And the tight end position this year has got so many good young options. It's bananas. I don't know if they're all going to pan out, but you look at Hawkinson, you look at Noah Fant, you look at Blake Jarwin, you look at Chris Herndon. There's a ton of them. I mean, Hayden Hurst, Mike Gesicki, like I could keep going. So I feel like that's a position where if you sort of wait, you could potentially hit a big time home run with a guy in the middle to the late rounds of this draft.
There you go. Now, the last pick that just came off the board, Kareem Hunt. Of course I love what Derek Carty has done so far. Kiss of death, maybe. But Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, and Kareem Hunt as running backs. Allen Robinson and Cortland Sutton as the wide receivers. I think that's a Fab Five, Wolfman.
It is. It's looking good there, too. So, and, the theory of taking the handcuff away from guys who really need to jump up for it, for the situation like it is in Kansas City and like it is in Cleveland. Those are certainly 2 spots. And like it is in Minnesota, those are 3 spots that you certainly have to have your handcuff. So, I like that part of the strategy. I think defense is a part of drafting. I know people don't think that. Draft the best team for me. Well, no, I think at some points you have to notice that that a guy doesn't have a quarterback yet. And if you take one more, he gets the absolute bottom tier. And I think you have to play defense sometimes. And I love the fact that he took the handcuff away.
All right. The 5th round very much underway. And the 3rd quarterback taken is off the board. It's none other than Cowboy quarterback, newly minted $30 million man, Dak Prescott. I've seen plenty of people with Dak as the quarterback 3, but I've seen
Kyler Murray
Murray
not be the 3rd one.
Well, stop projecting over there, you hillbilly.
Wait a minute. How? And I love Kyler Murray. Dak Prescott was the QB2 last year. There was one quarterback better than him last year, and his name is Lamar Jackson. Only one, okay? And I get it. Patrick Mahomes missed time, regardless, whatever. Dak, even though he killed a lot of people at the end of the season with a couple of stinkers, he was tremendous for most of the year. And then you bring in CeeDee Lamb, who most people out there, including my pal Daniel Jeremiah at NFL Network, had as the number 1 wide receiver prospect in the class. So, of course, Dak is going to be, the 3rd quarterback. And he's also, let's say, he's singing for his supper a little bit, right, man? I mean, he's got to have a big year. He just signed the franchise. So he has a big year. Not only does Dak Prescott help a lot of fantasy owners out there, but he helps his bottom line, and he's going to make a lot of money in this league.
All right, we are going to talk to all of the owners. We'll probably get to talk to the Dak Prescott owner, but we're going to start with the guy who had the 1st overall pick. We're going to go to John Marash. He has a team of Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Patrick Mahomes, Keenan Allen, and Terry McLaurin. John, if I would have told you would have started this draft with Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey, you'd say, all right, I'm feeling all right.
Yeah, I actually had eyes on Lamar getting to the end of round 2, and Kittle, ironically enough. So when they went off the board, I was left scrambling a little bit. I heard you call it out that having running back and a wide receiver in the same team, not the way I drew it up, but I'll take the ceiling with DJ Moore. I think he's got real potential. I think they're going to be behind in a lot of games, and it doesn't matter what the record is as long as the fantasy points come. I was thrilled to get McLaurin in the 4th and 5th, and I think Keenan Allen, best days are probably behind him, but still pretty solid at that point.
All right, let's get one more question each. Michael Fabiano, you get your chance to cross-examine the number 1 guy who had the number 1 pick, John Marash.
Yeah, I mean, when you get Christian McCaffrey, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be competing for a playoff berth, and then Patrick Mahomes, and again, sort of what I do. I'm not a guy who goes after the quarterbacks early, but he arguably has the number 1 running back and the number 1 quarterback on his roster. And I like his wide receivers. DJ Moore is a guy that I've been trying to go after. Now, there was a couple of guys I had ranked ahead of him at that spot, but again, go get your guy. Keenan Allen, no Phillip Rivers. I understand he's still going to get a lot of targets. And Terry McLaurin could push for top 15 numbers at that wide receiver position as long as Dwayne Haskins takes steps. to developing as an NFL quarterback. And last year, there was times it was kind of ugly, but these guys have a rapport dating back to their time together at Ohio State. And McLaurin, for most of last season, was damn good. So he's got 3 good wide receivers. He's got McCaffrey. You have to make sure you go running back heavy here, my friend, over the next couple of rounds to make up for the fact that RB2 could be a crapshoot. But I like so far what this team looks like because he's got players that could make up for maybe a lack of a stud somewhere in that starting lineup.
There you go.
Counselor, is there a question in there somewhere?
The defense is wrong.
So John, I will ask you a question. Do you regret the pick of Patrick Mahomes? Because after that, Montgomery, Connor, Bell, Gordon, David Johnson, Chris Carson, Taylor, Singletary, Swift, Mostert, Akers, all go before you get to pick again, and you basically lost your chance to get an RB2.
Yeah, I don't regret it. I've been in this pool long enough and always come up short because I always go 0 QB. Last year, I bounced between Garoppolo and someone else. So I was coming out of this draft with the QB higher than I normally would. As for those other players, I feel like once you get through the top 25 guys, you can make arguments for a lot of players. And although I have a hole at RB2 right now, there's a lot of guys that I have my eye on that I think as the course of the season goes on will help. And at the end of the day, McCaffrey's almost 2 running backs. So I feel pretty good about it.
There you go. All right, John Marash, you've got 5 players on your team, looking good so far. And, of course, you have arguably the best quarterback and best running back in fantasy. So we're looking forward to see how you fill out that roster. 2 very interesting things just happened. One team loaded up with 4 wide receivers in the first 5 picks. And perhaps the most surprising pick of the entire draft so far in the top 5 rounds has gone off the board. We will tell you that when we get back. Colton, the Wolfman, and Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano bringing you the FSGA American Conference Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Timer's running.
All right, Rick, should I finish my name this story now?
Yeah, you got to tell me the story, of course.
So I'm in the everyone's in the men's room, you're sitting there, you're standing there, you're doing your deal. Namath comes in, okay? He stands right next to me. And there's people who they see Joe Namath and they got all excited. Hey, Joe, what's going on? Blah, 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 And Joe goes, hey, guys. And he's standing there and he's pissing. And he's like, man, sometimes there ain't nothing better than a good piss. the whole bathroom just erupted into laughter. And that's my Joe Namath story because it's the only time I've ever been anywhere near the guy for the most part. But
really?
It was pretty fun.
You worked for CBS. Joe was around all the time in those early days. He used to come on Fridays and
Florida?
Jimmy Walsh's, in Florida in 95 and 95, 96 before you got down there.
Yeah, I wasn't
We were in the old 14,000 square foot, not the big giant building out on Cypress Creek. We were in the building next to the Hyatt, and he and his agent used to bring us kegs of beer on Friday afternoons to get us to stay at work.
Oh gosh, that's so funny, man. So where are they now?
He would come down and he would wave. He wouldn't stay long. He would wave, but every once in a while, somebody would throw him a football and make him throw a pass.
Oh,
but he could barely walk at that time. I mean, his knees before they got replaced, he was just tough to watch as he could barely get out of his car when he's your hero,
Exactly. So at that point, you guys were there. Where is CBS now? Where's Sportsline now?
Isn't it still on Cypress? Isn't it still on Cypress Creek?
But not in that big building anymore, right?
Yeah,
it's still on Cypress Creek, but
across the street from the airport.
So, guys, let's go to. Should we go to Chris or Ben, who wants to do the interview about the 4 wide receivers here?
I think Ben's more.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump into it.
All right, you got it. We will do that. And very interesting. I mean, you guys know who I'm shocked by in the first 5 rounds, right? Somebody
I assume Geis was my guess.
Nope, that's not the one that shocked me.
I was thinking Ronald Jones.
Also not the one that shocked me. Maybe it's not so shocking.
It's definitely Dobbins.
Yeah.
I got AJ Green in the 5th round. Didn't play at all last year.
That's
But, reasonable minds can differ.
30 seconds, guys.
No, they can't differ. You're right. Just ask you.
Well played.
Coming back in 10.
Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes?
Touchdown! Kansas City! Mahomes runs it in!
Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey?
Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey. That guy is special.
There are some tough decisions to be made in fantasy football this year. Hear who the top experts draft when they're on the clock in the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
We start round number 6 here in the second hour of SiriusXM's coverage of the FSGA American Conference Expert Fantasy Football Draft Hall of Fame booth with Hall of Famers Michael Fabiano and Rick Wolf joining me, Glenn Colton. In the 5th round, it went like this. Terry McLaurin, Mark Andrews, Kareem Hunt, Dak Prescott, Mark Ingram, T.Y. Hilton, Ronald Jones, Stephon Diggs, Michael Gallup, Darius Geis, Jarvis Landry, A.J. Green, J.K. Dobbins, and Marquise Brown. I thought one of those picks was obviously the most surprising. That's what I promised to deliver. To me, it was A.J. Green going that early. Michael Fabiano, maybe it's not as surprising as I thought.
I mean, going that early, 5th round of a sizable league, I think that's probably a pretty good bargain, actually, for Villawood, because, AJ is going to be their 3rd wide receiver. And I feel like, listen, he's going to be an offense where we saw Tyler Boyd put up some pretty good numbers last year. We saw Auden Tate become fantasy relevant. And it's almost the same situation. They can stay healthy. And AJ's had, some lower body issues over the last few seasons. But if he could stay healthy, and remember, he's also in a contract year, he's going to want to go out there and prove that he could stay healthy and still get it done at the highest level. I feel like as a wide receiver 3, that's pretty good value for AJ Green.
All right.
We need some research on that. We need some research on the contract year thing. I know that Jason Collette did a whole bunch of it for Major League Baseball, and especially for players changing teams and other things like that. But we need some of that for football.
All right, we'll get some more analytic guys on that. One of the other big strategy moments that's been unfolding here in this American Conference Experts Draft is the pick of 4 wide receivers in a row. Team CBS Sports with Ben Gretsch and Chris Towers have gone Miles Sanders with the first pick, then Godwin, Juju, A.J. Brown, and Stephon Diggs before they went back to running back in Tariq Cohen. And let's get Ben Gretsch and CBS onto the show here. Ben, talk to us about going 4 wide receivers in a row while everyone else is just loading up the running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the big reason to like the strategy is just that a lot of running backs were going in some of those spots where we're getting guys, Michael talked about where A.J. Brown went. I thought Diggs was clearly the best value on the board where we took him. I really like his skill set and ability to be a number 1. If the Bills treat him more like a number 1, Minnesota's kind of pigeonholed him the last couple of years. So I think, points are points and obviously running back is a very important position, but the way that running backs have gone off the board in this draft, we've now filled out our 3 receiver spots on our flex with some guys that are, that I think have some real explosive upside and we have the potential to have a high scoring roster. Now the weak spot will probably be RB2. We just grabbed Tariq Cohen there and hopefully he can be a guy that does it for us and we'll be looking for some running back upside later as well. But I really like the way this roster is built personally.
All right, Fabs, cross-examine.
Question this time, counsel.
Oh man, you know what though? Listen, you've got an issue at RB2, and you have an issue in RB2, right? I mean, Tariq Cohen is probably more of a 3 or 4. This is a bigger league, so he's probably more of a 3. You got to hope that those wide receivers all pan out for you. The wide receiver core to me is very strong. Juju Smith-Schuster, let's not forget. I mean, this guy is in an offense where he could potentially end up being a top 10 wide receiver. You've got a top 10 wide receiver in Chris Godwin. And A.J. Brown, for all intents and purposes, was one of the elite wide receivers in fantasy football down the stretch once Ryan Tannehill took over there in Tennessee. Diggs is probably more of a 3. You got him as a 4. So wide receiver is clearly going to be the strength. But and I know Rick doesn't love Miles Sanders. I think he's going to be phenomenal in 2020, especially if the Eagles don't go in the direction of adding another running back there to that backfield. So you sort of know what you have there, right? I mean, hopefully you're going to get 50, 60 catches out of Tariq Cohen, which will sort of ease things a little bit, just a little bit. But you almost have to nail some sort of sleeper at that running back position, either in the rest of this draft or potentially during the course of the regular season.
All right. Well, Ben, listen, we appreciate your coming on, talking about those 4 wide receivers. We'll be watching what you're doing and see how you fill out that RB2 position. Good luck the rest of the way. Wolfman, we are through 6 rounds. I know you're inputting the players, inputting the projections. Any trends among the teams now that everyone has 6 players rostered?
No, but when I finish out putting in the 6th round, when we come out of the next break, I think it's a good opportunity for me to run down how the points are shedding out for people. For instance, Ben was just talking about, it's all about points, but those 4 wide receivers are in the mid 200s as far as points go. And many of the other running backs, especially the ones who catch passes, would have been in the high 200s. So if you are just going after points, then to me, you would have been going after, after David Johnson, and the guys who catch balls out of the backfield.
There you go. Michael Fabiano, there are certainly running back playing time battles. 2 of them are actually in Florida, one in Tampa, where it's Keyshawn Vaughn and Ronald Jones, and one in Miami, where it's Jordan Howard and Matt Breida. In this draft, Ronald Jones goes a round before Keyshawn Vaughn, and Jordan Howard goes 1 pick before Matt Breida. How do you see those 2 Florida situations playing out? Because the winner of those battles, somebody's got themselves a great pick. The loser, somebody's hoping for an injury.
So I liked what Fantasy Data did with Keyshawn Vaughn there in the 6th round, because I have him ranked higher than Ronald Jones. And ultimately, this probably will end up being a committee situation in Bruce Arians' offense. But I feel like Vaughn has a higher ceiling. He's a better fit. He's a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, proved that last year. And to me, he's my biggest running back sleeper in terms of the first-year players. So I would have gone Vaughn over Ronald Jones, who I still feel like there's some deficiencies in his game there. In Miami, like Jordan Howard, I mean, he is the Rodney Dangerfield of fantasy football running backs, right? He came in the league and no one really talked about him, and he was really good for the first couple of years in Chicago. And then last year, he basically made Miles Sanders irrelevant from a fantasy standpoint in terms of starting lineups, because he was so good, and then he went down, and then Sanders sort of took off. Howard's in a good spot. I mean, he's going to be the starter. He'll be the early down back. You would think he's going to end up seeing goal line opportunities. I feel like Breida, it's a thunder and lightning sort of situation. So Breida will certainly get his opportunities as well, and probably a heck of a lot more catches, which is why they went so close here. But I feel like Jordan Howard could end up being a little bit undervalued in some drafts. If you could use him as a flex starter, I think you're looking pretty good. Miami also improved the offensive line during the offseason. So I feel like Jordan Howard's not getting enough love. I'm not saying he's elite, but I'm saying based on where his ADP is at this point, it's not a bad value.
Michael Fabiano going thunder and lightning in Miami, basically telling everybody that Jordan Howard and Matt Breida are the next Larry Zonka and Mercury Morris.
Well, that's certainly not what I said, but
certainly
okay.
not. Certainly not.
Oh, we got the Dolphins hat there. DFS Karma.
Ah, there you go. And listen, there's some other interesting storylines developing here in this FSGA American Conference draft. The quarterback run could be starting, and it might have been started by Fantasy Alarm and Fanjection's Ryan Hallam. Ryan, look up, because we are going to throw the ball to you. You took Kyler Murray in the 7th round to start that run. I have to ask this question. In my Cowboy jersey, co-hosting with Michael Fabiano in his Cowboy jersey, if Dak was there, would you have taken Kyler, or you believe in Dak or Kyler more?
I considered both guys the last time around. I decided to pass on him, but I did write an article for Fantasy Alarm, not to self-promote during this.
Please do.
With that exact scenario, Dak or Kyler Murray. Broke it down by weapons, by offensive line, by offensive system, and everything like that, and it came out very, very close. But in the end of the article, I gave the advice to take Dak Prescott shortly over Kyler Murray. So if they were both there, I would have taken Dak Prescott. I have him as a 3 with Murray a very close 4, but really thrilled to wait 2 more rounds and still get my guy. And, the round before I was looking for Jordan Howard, and then I looked at the player behind me had already taken their quarterback, so I knew that I could take Howard first, and Murray would certainly be there on my next turn. I didn't see someone taking 2 quarterbacks in a 14-team league in the first 7 rounds.
So there's a big strategy point in how to manage a draft that Ryan just mentioned there, Wolfman. Ryan is taking in the 2 spot. So he can look at the one guy who's going to make 2 picks behind him, and he's looking at Patrick Mahomes. So he knows without question that in round 7, there's no chance that John is going to take a second quarterback in round 7. So he can very confidently look at the board and say, I can wait on the quarterback one more pick because there's no chance he takes him. That's just a lesson. I think that's just, if people take nothing else away from this coverage, that's a huge lesson.
Yeah. On both ends of the draft, of course, even a couple spots in, you can take a look at 2, 3, 4 players, depending, even if you're in the middle, watch who's on one end and who's on the other end. We did a lot of this yesterday. It's a big part of our strategy and what we do. I like to start the runs also. So, at a time when some of these teams have no quarterbacks, I'd love to see Ryan take his second quarterback to get one started at some point. Not pushing, but that's a strategy that I love to use too. I believe that defense is as important as offense in the draft.
There you go. All right, Ryan, listen, good job so far. Appreciate you spending a little time with us, and we look forward to talking to you down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Michael Fabiano, 3 quarterbacks have gone in this 7th round. Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, and Russell Wilson. There are quarterbacks 4, 5, and 6 off the board in this draft. To me, and I'm curious where you come out, after Wilson, there's a fairly steep drop-off, and I wouldn't be surprised to see teams wait another couple of rounds, if not more, before they jump back in the pool. What do you think?
See, I don't know if there is a steep drop-off. Like, Josh Allen was really good last year, and now you bring in Stephon Diggs. So, and then you've Matt Ryan, who's like, I get it. He hasn't had a full career of elite fantasy production, but a lot of his career he's been really good. I mean, he's actually one of the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks of all time when you look at just points. Most years he's putting up numbers, and he's out there as well. And you've got Breeze and you've got Brady. So I feel like Josh Allen is still. He could be on this Russell Wilson tier. And Russell Wilson, as great as he is, the second half of last year, if you had Russell Wilson, you were pulling your hair out because he was so unreliable and so inconsistent. With that being said, he's clearly still one of the 6 or 7 best quarterbacks in fantasy football. But this is about the time where these guys are going to go. So this sort of fits the narrative. If you're talking about experts leagues where people are waiting at the quarterback position, once you get into these rounds, you're going to see Kyler, you're going to see Deshaun Watson, you're going to see Russell Wilson, assuming we'll see Josh Allen here in the next round or so.
All right. So, Wolfman, do you agree? We took Josh Allen in the Champions League draft yesterday, covered right here at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I think we got him a bit later than this. I have to look it up. But do you agree that Josh Allen is maybe just one tick below Russell Wilson, or do you think there's a bigger gap than Fabs is saying?
Yeah, and if you look at yesterday's draft, right, in the 6th round coming back, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson all went in the 6th round. Drew Brees in the 7th round, then Matt Ryan, and then we took Josh Allen at the end of the 8th round, followed almost immediately by Rodgers and Wentz and Brady. So, look, if he's your guy, then you're going to have to step up. So, because these next guys are going to go in the next 3 rounds. Those 5 or 6 quarterbacks. So, and then there'll be a long break for where there's the whole bottom of the draft is, all throwing darts, I think. And it's just who you like better, who happens to have the best situation. And, there's only a small number of quarterbacks that I like that are below that. So I say, if you like Josh Allen, you better go get him.
Well, that's certainly true, and we'll see how much effect we have in the radio booth on the picks that our experts are making. We'll visit with another couple of our experts, and we'll see where Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees go off the board when SiriusXM's coverage of the FSGA American Conference Experts Draft continues.
In a break.
There goes CD.
We clear? Are we clear, by the way? We're clear?
Yes. We're live on the live stream still. So
yeah. Always.
But there goes CD Lamb. I like that pick.
Yeah,
Rick, do you have projections?
I do. I do. I can do.
I don't think
do
you're
a
going to like
CD
it too
Lamb
much,
lookup.
Glenn.
Listen, the best thing to happen is
They're
not win the
Ryan's
projections.
predictions, though. 79 targets, 53 catches, 593 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, but the projections, I don't know.
Yeah,
He's going to have some games where he wins people a lot of money in DFS. Let's just put it that way.
Talk about
But we're in that.
Yeah.
We're you can make the pick in the in that other league and take Jamison Crowder in the baseball football league.
They can't
Still
have
available in the 36th round.
They can't have 3 1,000-yard receivers, Glenn.
They cannot have 3 1,000-yard receivers. That's why I love them all in best ball, because someone's going to go up every week. I did one best ball draft where I actually got all 3.
Really?
Thinking that.
And so
Homer.
No, but I thought it's an easy strat. One of them's going to go off every week. So I figured, all right, for best ball, it's an
worth a
interesting
shot.
play.
I mean, you do how many leagues best ball?
Well, yeah, a lot over at RT Sports. But I don't know. Is Kellen Moore just going to keep winging the ball all over the place? I mean, if Dak throws for 5,000, why can't they each get 1,000 yards?
In theory, I guess.
I mean,
like my granddad used to say, Glenn, you can wish in one hand and poop in the other. See which one fills up first.
Yeah, was it the Colts that did it with Harrison, Wayne, and Stokely? Was the last time they had 3 wide receivers on the
Sounds
same team
right.
with 1,000?
Personally, I hope it doesn't happen, because it means they're not running the ball and keeping the defense off the field. But that's neither here nor there.
Well,
Glenn,
our
can you check
defense
the G chat, please?
Probably
I
not going to be
can.
that great.
Yeah,
we have Dallas with the
and I am
second
prepping
most
projections
vacated
right
targets
now.
from last season. So that's what with Randall Cobb. We don't know how Randall Cobb got 83 targets, but he did. So we definitely feel like CD Lamb has that opportunity to get that maybe not 1,000, but very close to it.
It's interesting. I really like Cobb in Houston, but I thought he sometimes was in the wrong place a lot of times last year.
A lot of production in very few games. It was at that 5 or 6 week streak where he was great and disappeared a lot of other weeks.
Really good. Mm-hmm.
There goes Josh Allen too, by the way.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
10 seconds, guys.
So Kevin is a big Cowboys fan, and one of our other partners, Radney Wood, is a huge Buffalo fan. So
like the pick.
I'm going chalk. Don't overthink it. So with the first pick, Grayson will select Christian McCaffrey.
McCaffrey, right up the middle, touchdown.
Sanders only had a chance to be the featured back for his final collegiate season. And by the way, he was dynamite. I love him late in the first round.
Touchdown! Miles Sanders!
Now back to Glenn Colton and Rick Wolf from Real Time Sports and Michael Fabiano.
All right, we are into the 8th round of the FSGA American Conference draft here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. The draft started, as you heard, with Christian McCaffrey going 1 overall, and the 7th round ended with Jamison Crowder to Team DFS Karma. They actually did a double tap of wide receivers in Crowder and Lamb. So far, there are 4 running backs and 4 wide receivers on DFS Karma. Nick Chubb, Kenyon Drake, Jonathan Taylor, and Sony Michel, the running backs. Devontae Parker, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Jamison Crowder, and CD Lamb of the Cowboys as their 4 receivers. We're going to be joined now by, I believe, Travis Waters from DFS Karma. I got a couple of questions for you, but I got to start with, CD Lamb in round 8. We were talking on the live stream here that folks can follow, at SiriusXM Fantasy, at FantasyAlarm, or, at a bunch of these sites. 8th round, there's Gallup, there's Cooper, there's Jarwin, and of course there's Zeke. Can CD explode?
We think he has the upside to be able to. So the draft mindset we had for last year's FSGA league that we were in was very safe floor. And then I guess we maybe overlooked a few details and how the teams are selected for the playoffs. Having those 3 teams of most total points scored kind of, generally most leagues that I play in personally is, maybe 1 or 2 total points scored gets put in there. So we wanted to make sure that because of that overlooked rule that we didn't see drafted last time, they want to get as many points as possible. So after, I believe, Devontae Parker, Ben and I were just like, listen, we need to go all upside for the rest of this draft. Just get as many guys who could possibly explode in their given circumstance. And like we were saying on the live stream and on the break, the Dallas Cowboys have the second most vacated targets from last season, mainly due to Randall Cobb having 83 of those. So we were talking about on the live stream that, is it possible for Dallas to have 3 1,000-yard receivers? I mean, say anything's possible, especially that situation for how much targets CeeDee Lamb will be getting. But I don't know. I'm feeling pretty confident in this this upside friendly 4 receiver, 4 running back team so far.
Yeah. So Travis, now you've made me vomit for the 5th time. So those who have the over only have 1 more to go. CeeDee Lamb going before Jerry Jeudy as a rookie is shocking to me. Michael Gallup going before Jarvis Landry. Amari Cooper heading out before Odell Beckham and Adam Thielen.
Rick, I thought you were saying that our selections alone were the one that made you vomit.
Vomit.
I was like, wait a second, our drafting alone made you vomit? No, but you're saying overall. I got you.
Overall,
I was like, man, this guy hates my team.
No, you're just the straw that broke the camel's back there with number 5 vomit. So
gotcha. Number 5.
He's just tired of all the Cowboys talk, Travis. So don't take any offense.
Hey, Travis, I just want you to say to the Wolfman right now the following phrase: "Stop projecting."
Stop projecting.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Very good. Little wedding crashers thing. Fabs, you got to follow up for Travis.
But I am projecting. I'm running projections right now.
Ah, well done,
Wolfman. So, what are your projections for CeeDee Lamb? I'm really interested to hear this. I really am. Come on.
All right. So, and they're by the way, they're not my
this better be good,
if you will. So,
all
right. Let's look her up. Okay. I said it at the break, and it was not particularly loved by Glenn. But 79 targets, 53 receptions, 593 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
See, I feel like that's. I feel like he's going to score more. But I think you're close. I think you're pretty close.
Man.
I know. So here's the scenario where CeeDee Lamb busts out this season. Okay, if Amari Cooper cannot avoid injuries, and we know in the second half of last year, he was a little bit banged up. Michael Gallup, as much as we love him, Glenn, he did have a little Butterfingers thing going on last season. I believe it was Julian Edelman and then Gallup in terms of drops at the wide receiver position last year. If Gallup keeps that whole Butterfingers thing going and Dak Prescott saying, you know what, Gallup, you're not catching the ball as much. I got this guy, CeeDee Lamb. We drafted him in the first round, 17th overall. You may have heard from him and start throwing the ball to CeeDee. Then you can start seeing CeeDee Lamb's stats and go up, and maybe Gallup sort of they don't increase as we all sort of expected them. And he had a great season in 2019. But it's just fun as a Cowboys fan to have all of these weapons and this absolute embarrassment of riches. Rick Wolf.
It certainly is. So we still have Travis from DFS Karma, Travis Waters, with us. I want to ask you about the strategy of no tight end, no quarterback. You got 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers. Are you concerned at all about filling those positions?
So Ben and I are like, we're just, there's so many text messages going back and forth. It's comedy at this point. But he truly believes, and I agree with him as well, that if you don't get one of the top, I believe, 3, 4. Pretty much, let's see, the top 2. If you don't get Kittle or Kelsey, everyone else is kind of in their own category. So we there's a few late draft tight ends that we're targeting for that. QB, similar as well, where if you're not getting one of the top 3, we did like Stafford, but Stafford went to Randy at FanDraft there. But yeah, we're just all upside with late round QB, late round tight end strategy going on right now.
All right.
Well, so, good luck. I see that you got that Dolphins hat on too, right?
There's a tight end
go ahead. South Florida,
grill me.
Who had a pretty cool Instagram there where he threw a football seemingly over a house, caught it, and ran it into the end zone, which was the driveway. Could he be a guy you're potentially targeting a little bit later on, my friend?
I think
the pause
not
for
too
drama.
Sure on that.
Those on the live stream could see the drama playing out. It was beautifully played there, Mr.
The contemplation of being honest with that answer. I don't know. Ben and I kind of have.
I don't want to give anything away.
each person have kind of their homer picks. Ben's, of course, up in the Cleveland area. So Nick Chubb wasn't a homer pick. That was a pick we both agreed on. When it came to Parker, we're looking between Parker and we want to get Thielen, but of course, team rankings took that away. So we went with Parker over. I believe we were thinking of Woods. It was Woods or Parker. So I went Parker because of the slight homer pick theirs. But beyond that, nothing will be selected based on favoritism of team. I'm a huge of course, because I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm a huge anti-Patriots fan. So picking up Sony there was definitely something I had to bite my tongue on. But I don't know if there's any other Dolphins that, depending on, of course, if it's the last pick of the draft, that I'm going to be targeting specifically.
All right. Well, we will tell everyone to leave Mike Gesicki for you as your tight end. Travis, thanks for spending some time with us, and good luck in the last 8 rounds.
You. And the headline reads, Wolf hates lamb.
Wolf hates lamb.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, we can talk about some other Wolfman issues later on, but let's go to another one of our owners here. We've got Brandon Flowers from Vila Wood. They got DeAndre Hopkins, Austin Eckler, Odell Beckham Jr., Zach Ertz, A.J. Green, James White, John Brown, and Josh Allen. A lot of interesting picks there, but I got to ask you about your last two. You went for a quarterback wide receiver combo in John Brown and Josh Allen. You worried at all that you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket week to week?
Definitely. I mean, there's always that risk that they could have an off week, and comes with the upside of them hanging out of the park a couple weeks in a row. I know with Stephon Diggs coming to Buffalo might hurt some of John Brown's targets, but hopefully you can keep that production up.
All right, we're having a little trouble hearing Brandon.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Brandon is back.
Yeah.
Fabs, I know that you have that you like the DeAndre Hopkins pick, but talk to us about what other questions you may have for Brandon.
So really, and we've seen this draft, the theme has been running backs they went hot and heavy in the first several rounds. You've got Austin Eckler, who, by the way, I love. I know the guy. He's motivated for this season. I know they brought in Joshua Kelly, Melvin Gordon, clearly now in Denver. I feel like, Eckler, getting him where you did was very solid. You're going to need James White from a couple of years ago, right? Yeah. At that running back position. Last season, a lot less consistent, a lot fewer opportunities to get into the end zone. And we saw that in terms of his numbers. So, are there some running backs out there that you guys are targeting, young running backs who potentially have a little bit higher ceiling than some of us are projecting to sort of boost the depth of that position?
Yeah, we're looking at some late round guys that can hopefully knock it out of the park with some breakout years, mostly with James White, and looks like a lot of the guys in the squad. We're hoping that there's still some stuff left in the tank. OBJ obviously had a down year. Zach Ertz having a down year. But we think that with those guys falling down, A.J. Green also, with them falling so far down the draft board, that we got some value there.
All right, Brandon, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Good luck in the second half of the draft. Certainly started well with Hopkins and Eckler. Good stuff there. And the 9th round has just gotten started. But what's very interesting to me, Michael Fabiano, is the 8th round ended with 3 high upside but backup running backs in Boston Scott, Zach Moss, and Alexander Madison, the first Treasury Secretary. Fabs, of those 3, which one of those is most likely to break out?
So, I mean, to me, like, you're looking at the guys ahead of him, right? I mean, Miles Sanders is a durable guy. Devin Singletary has been durable, at least, collegiately. Didn't really play a featured role until the second half of last season. But then you've got Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook, as much as I love the guy, he's ridiculously productive when he's out there on the field. His first 2 seasons in the NFL, marred by injuries, missed a couple of games last year, talking about holding out. So I feel like Madison could end up being a league winner in best case scenario. Let's put it that way. And I know that the Crown League they're probably not real happy because they drafted Dalvin Cook in the first round, and they now have no shot to get him because Madison goes off the board to Grace No Sport. So really tough when, and I know Rick likes to do this, when you kind of snake another team in the league, whether you're going after a quarterback that they may want, even though you have a quarterback, you still get them to block that team from getting them, or in this case, getting a high upside, potentially league winning running back who's entering the season as a backup, but that starter has some question marks. So Madison, and you're seeing that ADP with Alexander Madison rise ever since the report came out that Dalvin might attempt to hold out here as we get into some semblance of training camp.
The voice of Michael Fabiano and Rick Wolf with me, Glenn Colton, up against a break. But we get back, we're going to talk about not only the rookie and young running backs that went off the board, but there's been a string of some very high upside young wide receivers. We'll tell you who they are. And we'll also spend a little time with Derek Carty, who started the draft with just brilliance and excellence with Ezekiel Elliott. Colton, the Wolfman, and Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano coming back with more draft coverage on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Clear?
I wanted Judy and thought I could let him pass that turn, damn it.
Judy.
Oh, well. It's going to take him an 8, and then I decided to let it go. I figured you were going to take 2 running backs.
I'd rather stick needles in my eyes. This is what Glenn puts up with every Tuesday night at the breaks.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It's Fab. Did you ever hear about those really early days, the 95 and 96 days of Sportsline? We had Levy basically gave us an unlimited expense account as long as we could keep everybody working as much as they could. So everybody partied till 4 a.m. and then came in at 10 or 10:30 and then worked until 8 or 9 at night and then did the same thing again. And it was just absolutely out of control at the beach place out there at Adobe Gilas. We were there pretty much every night. And
was that like the group with like Eric Michaels and like Mike Phillips and those guys, or is that before?
No, before that? It was Franco and Tony Fernandez and Greg Lewis and Dan Leichenschlag.
Yep.
The whole early crew there.
Some blast from the past there.
Dan Smith, Dan Murphy.
I remember just about all the names. So,
yeah.
Hey Rick, by the way, Levy's still a legend. He was one of our advisors, but he's still doing his thing.
He is a legend, and he was like a father figure to me in a lot of ways there because, I had some confusing things happen, and I had to come back to New York. And rather than have me quit, he figured out a new job for me in New York and got me set up. So he'll always have a special place for me.
What is he doing these days, Rick? Is he still doing?
He's advising and investing a lot of companies. I think he thought Open Sports Network Open Sports was gonna pop.
I remember. I remember Open Sports.
And he's been going slow since then. He and I don't talk that often, maybe once a year. Mm-hmm. And he generally just calls me up. Hi, Rick. I just want to check in with you there or make sure everything's going okay. So I hope everything's going good. I'll be out here in Vegas if you want to come visit.
15 here, guys.
He's out in Vegas playing golf, and he's still very involved in the fantasy and the sports betting scene.
Nice.
All right, Wolfman, got some standings through 8.
From rookie wideouts C.D. Lamb and Jerry Jeudy.
Touchdown, Jerry Jeudy.
To first-year runners Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift.
Touchdown, DeAndre Swift.
This year's rookie class is poised to make a big impact for fantasy football. This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Hour number 2 coming close to a close of the FSGA American Conference Experts Fantasy Football Draft. You can check out the board at rtsports.com/FSGA-American. They do great work over there at rtsports.com. Check it out. You want to get involved in drafts yourself, rtsports.com/Wolfman to get involved over there. And you can also watch the live stream. Check out the Twitter feed at SiriusXM Fantasy or at FantasyAlarm or at the other sites of the really great competitors we have going here. Before we go to Derek Carty, who's one of those great competitors who had the 3rd pick, through 8 rounds, the Wolfman is crunching the numbers, doing the nerd thing, and he's got some standings for us.
I do. And the caveat here, different than baseball, is, and it does happen in baseball sometimes because you either have a lot of pitchers or you don't have a lot of pitchers. But in this particular case, if you don't have a quarterback, it generally hurts the numbers a little bit. So you'll say that as a caveat. But right now, Derek Carty leading, 1,897 projected points. The Sherpa, 1,876. Vela Wood, 1868. Crown, 1861. And rounding out the top 5, Grace Note with that number 1 running back and number 1 quarterback at 1857.
Now, Derek's team has Zeke, right? Derek took Zeke with his first overall pick. That's correct?
He did.
Okay, well, then it makes a lot of sense, Glenn, that he is the current favorite to win this whole thing.
There you go. Hashtag genius. Derek Carty, a new member of Cowboys Nation.
That makes the over already. It's not even end of hour 2. That's
All
6
right.
vomits. Thank you very much.
Derek Carty, I know you have a soft spot for Texas because throughout the spring training before it was aborted, it was the Houston pitcher, Lance McCullers, who captured your fancy, and now it's running back Zeke Elliott. So talk to us about going Zeke Elliott and Todd Gurley back to back. And if you want to extol the McCullers virtue, we can go back and forth a little bit.
I mean, McCullers is amazing. I like the Zeke pick. I was very on the fence whether I was going to go Zeke, whether I was going to go Michael Thomas, or whether I was going to go Kamara. I think Thomas is going to put up more total points than Zeke, even once you adjust for position scarcity and everything else. I had Thomas valued higher than Zeke, but people love the running backs. They take their running backs early. It almost seems like, at least according to kind of my math, people overdraft the running backs, and the further you get into the draft, the more you have to overpay for a running back. So I'd rather take Zeke early and Gurley in the second round rather than, reach for, I don't know, whoever in round 7 or 8. I wasn't even in on running backs in 7 and 8, so I don't know who got taken there. But that was kind of my thought process behind taking Zeke early.
And what are your thoughts on Kareem Hunt? He's your third running back. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the program, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb basically were interchangeable from a fantasy perspective in the 8 games they played last year together. Nick Chubb was averaging about 13 points per game, and Kareem Hunt was averaging just under 13 points per game. Do you feel like Kareem's going to end up being a week in and week out starter for this roster?
I think it's certainly possible. I'm not necessarily banking on him for that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what winds up happening. I think there's a lot of ways they could wind up using him, a lot of ways he could get points. I was kind of hoping my wide receiver depth would be a little bit better, so I wouldn't have to, force him in there every week. And I've been getting sniped on several guys, but, we'll see how it goes.
All right, Derek, we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. Good luck with the last 7 picks you make, but we love the team so far. Don't forget there's still, Greg the Leg, the Cowboy defense, and Blake Jarwin still out there for your team, so don't worry about that.
Oh, my God.
We're having a little fun talking about the Cowboys, largely because Fabiano and I, of course, are members of Cowboys Nation in our Hall of Fame Cowboy running back jerseys, and the Wolfman is just hating it, which is why we are doing it. But in all seriousness, Rick, I know you are high on Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Denver, who just went first overall in the 9th round. Trying to look it up, when we drafted yesterday in the Champions League, we took Jeudy at the back end of the 6th round. I think the 9th round is a steal.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is, why did CeeDee Lamb go before Jerry Jeudy? If you look from a projection standpoint, I think the upside actually for Jeudy is a lot more. But from a projection standpoint, they're almost identical. Okay, 49 catches, 642, and 4 touchdowns. And Henry Ruggs with almost an exactly the same projection also. And Ayuk with a slightly lower one. So, amongst these rookies, I think Jeudy is the guy with the highest ceiling. So why not get the guy with the highest ceiling as soon as you can?
Michael Fabiano, leaving aside your cowboyness.
I have Jeudy ranked higher.
Me too.
So, I agree with Rick. I love CeeDee Lamb. Don't get me wrong. But if CeeDee ended up in Las Vegas, for example, or maybe with the Jets, then maybe we're talking about him being the consensus number 1 overall rookie wide receiver in 2020 fantasy drafts. But in terms of redrafts, Jeudy, I think, is in a better situation, and he has a better ceiling. He has a higher ceiling, as Rick mentioned. So I'm going to put my bias aside here, Mr. Wolf, okay? And I will agree with you that Jeudy is the better fantasy prospect in redrafts than CeeDee Lamb.
All right, there you go. Let's go stay in that division. Derek Carty, who we just spoke with, took Golden Tate in the 9th round as a wide receiver. Personally, I have no idea what to make of the Giant wide receiver core with Shepard and Tate and Slayton and, of course, Evan Ingram. And I was in the RT Sports, big money $250,000 championship, And in that Monday night game where Slayton had like 3 touchdowns and scored a ton of points, I thought in the rain it was going to be Golden Tate who was going to get the ball. So I have just totally given up trying to figure out the Giant receiving core.
2 minutes.
But, Fabs, how would you rank those 4 pass catchers on the Giants?
So I have them ranked as they're going to go in the draft, right? It was Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, and then Darius Slayton. But like, they're all bunched together at the position. Like Slayton had like the quietest 8 touchdowns of any receiver in the National Football League last year, right?
It's a good call.
And he clearly has that really good rapport with Daniel Jones, who we expect to make a leap in season 2, especially behind an improved offensive line. Golden Tate was the most reliable once he came back. Golden Tate was really good when he came back in PPR leagues. He was very consistent, a guy you could flex every single week, and you're getting double-digit fantasy points. So I feel like the highest ceiling is Slayton. If you want to go after the guy who's going to be the most reliable, it's Golden Tate. Sterling Shepard is sort of somewhere in between. And Shepard is a guy who has shown some flashes, but you have to worry about his durability somewhat.
Yeah, Glenn, I'll just put a capper on that because we've done so many. I think 41. I think 41 best ball drafts. So
wow.
But the Shepard always goes before Tate, and I always go if I have a choice between the two of them and it's that time, then I always take Tate. And I just don't understand why everybody takes Shepard before Tate. Whatever.
Yeah, I think that, in a best ball draft, Tate is a guy who, he's kind of boring. He's not going to have the big 3 touchdown game. But, as a wide receiver 3 flex guy who's a PPR guy, I think Tate is much more valuable in this, type of format. And again, it's one of the things that we preach on Colton Wolfman. I'm sure you, Fabs, on Fantasy Dirt from 7 to 9, Tuesdays and Fridays are pitching that you have to know the rules and the format
30.
you're playing in.
Yeah, I mean, no question about that, because if you go in blind, man, your fantasy team is unlikely to contend for any kind of playoff berth.
That is absolutely true. All right, we are through 2 hours of our 3-hour coverage here on Fantasy Sports Radio, the American Conference of the FSGA Draft. We'll come back. We'll get the end game. We'll get the interviews with people, and we'll talk strategy on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Antonio Gibson.
I want to hear about you guys.
Like
this is what I want to hear on the live stream. I see in the chat, guys are getting sniped. I saw somebody just freaked out over TJ Hawkinson. Come on, guys. This is your chance to get on each other for sniping each other.
Yeah, Hawkinson he projects high draft pick, eight games without Stafford last year, so it kind of sunk him. But a lot of tight ends don't break out till year 2 or 3, especially guys drafted high. I mean, you look back, Tony Gonzalez broke out year 2. I mean, all the guys that became good tight ends, Olsen, Gonzalez, all the first round picks, they really did it in year 2 besides Gronk. And so I think Hawkinson's a good pick there if Stafford's healthy.
Like Hawkinson as well.
I had him at 6 overall at tight end. I was hoping he'd fall.
Thanks for bringing up Darius Slayton.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I about took
he was my late round sleeper.
Thanks, guys.
Whatever. There's no secrets in this room. And by the way, Slayton cost me like $50,000, so I'm still pissed at him.
Well, I didn't cost you $50,000.
No, Slayton did.
I know. Damn it. Oh well.
He's a blabbermouth.
Yeah, for real. You blabbermouth.
You're a blabbermouth.
Yeah, Hurst was another one. I decided to go away from tight end, but I could have stacked Ryan and Hurst and Ridley and hope for big games out of my team that's an underdog at the bottom of the draft. That was a strategy I considered, going with a multiple stack and head-to-head.
If I didn't take Andrews so early, Hurst would definitely have been a target. I think that's moving the 10th round.
Mm-hmm.
Can't beat that.
For sure. And we'll see. Gibson's kind of my it's such an unsettled situation that, there's a path to Gibson having one of those seasons.
Glenn, can you check G-Chat, please?
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, outside McLaurin, you don't know who the heck's going to
guys
produce
like
there.
Clayton, guys like that have had huge rookie seasons out of that range and in unsettled backfields.
About 45
Thought
seconds,
Wentz.
guys.
I thought Wentz was going to
Bender's
drop
early
further with
picks
all you
here.
Cowboy fans.
Bender's early picks to win so far. I got Scott Swaney. I got the Fanjections boys, and I'm looking at Yahoo right now. Just letting you guys know. The rest of you need to pick up the slack a little.
Hey, give me McCaffrey, and I'll do that.
Thanks, boss.
You got a bucket out there, Bender, for all the cowboy talk here? You can vomit.
I'm immune to it now. From Bowden doing that to me all the time. This is nothing. This is literally nothing.
Wow. I'm soft.
All right, here comes the
As McCole Hardman goes.
It's fantasy football season, and Fantasy Sports Radio has an entire week of experts drafts to help you win.
Todd Gurley will be a colossal bust.
It's FSGA Draft Week, featuring the top fantasy football analysts from the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Find out which players you need to draft and learn winning strategies.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow will be a top 15 quarterback. Great throw by Burrow.
This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Champions League Draft, part of FSGA Draft Week on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Here are your hosts, Glenn Colton and Rick Wolf from Real Time Sports, and Michael Fabiano.
Hour number 3 gets underway of the FSGA Experts League Draft, the American Conference version. Glenn Colton, Michael Fabiano, Rick Wolf here with you. And there's a lot of ways for you to get into the action here. You can check out the draft board at rtsports.com/FSGA-American. You can also go just to our Twitter feed at SiriusXM Fantasy. You'll see that there as well. And you can watch the video live stream powered by Fantasy Alarm to see the hosts, the draft, the participants, all that at SiriusXM Fantasy. You could check that out there. And of course, if you missed any of the show or missed any of the analysis, you can hear the pick-by-pick coverage and analysis of all 5 of the FSGA drafts, not only this one, but the SiriusXM app by searching for Fantasy Drafts. Michael Fabiano, as we enter round 10, I know that you are not a big fan of Adam Gase or what he does for players and their fantasy production, but Denzel Mims at the end of round 10, pretty good dart throw.
Yeah, no, we're seeing some of these, right? I mean, Henry Ruggs went right before him. Now we're seeing the guys in the room sort of starting to, as you mentioned, throw a few darts, upside guys, see if they can sort of, hit that home run. And the Jets right now, their number 1 wide receiver, Jamison Crowder, from a fantasy perspective, and you got Rashad Perriman as well, who, I get it. Like, he was really good in the second half of last year. He was playing in Bruce Arians' offense, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both banged up. So that's why Perriman sort of came out of nowhere. This is a guy who had been a disappointment throughout his entire career. He was a first-round pick of the Ravens. Would it come as a shock to me that Denzel Mims ends up making a fantasy impact in 2020, considering what the Jets have at wide receiver right now? Absolutely not.
All right. So, Wolfman, I know that you were very surprised by the pick of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the first pick for FanDraft and Randy Lessline. We're going to talk to Randy and let him defend himself from your onslaught and criticism. Just kidding about that. Hey, Randy, good to talk to you. You're through 10 rounds. Talk to us about the thinking of grabbing CEH with your first overall pick.
It was a reach, but a lot of the guys that were available at that time, I felt like there was a limited ceiling. And I knew coming back around, there was a chance I was going to not get him. He was my guy. I wanted to make sure I got him locked up. And just picking at 10, there was going to be another 5-6 picks. And just the way that I had it measured, he wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to go out and get your guy, right, Glenn? I mean,
yeah.
And
all right,
if you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be this year's top fantasy rookie running back and he's in a great position to succeed, then you go out and you pull the trigger.
Yeah, so I want to ask one more question before we go to Wolfman. You had the opportunity in round 6 when you took Brandon Cooks to grab Damian Williams and have that handcuff. Did you think about that at all?
I never thought about that. Damian Williams played well in the Super Bowl. Prior to that, he never really felt like a solid starting NFL running back. I think he was a product of the system. I think he's solid, but I think Helaire is going to eventually take that role full time from him.
Yeah, are you going to save that tape? We got to save that tape, and then we have to save tape of somebody saying that Damian Williams was going to be really good, and then we'll only play the one who got it right. I think that's point flip, really.
I like that.
I'll go into hiding afterwards.
Yeah, one more question for you. You went 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds. I like that strategy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Swift, and Darius Geis. Was that the plan going in, or you just like the value of Swift and Geis in 4-5 where you picked?
I really like the value. And at that point, you're losing a lot of receivers. I had some deep receivers that I figured I could get later on, one of them being Darius Slayton. However, I lost out on that after all the chatter. But yeah, they just seem like they're good value picks. A person like Geis he's pretty much going to be the starting back on a Washington team that has a lot of question marks, but I think there's a lot of big upside there. And it's nice to load up on backs.
Well, it certainly is,
All right.
and there always can be injuries and things of that nature. So, Randy, we'll let you get ready for the end game. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your time with us.
Thank you.
All right, Michael Fabiano, I want to talk to you about one of his running backs, and that's Darius Geis. I see the talent, I see the opportunity, but I don't see his ability to stay on the field. And at some point, when do you say a guy's injury prone, and when do you just keep looking half full and say, oh, if he stays on the field, look how great he's going to be?
See, I have a hard time being unbiased because Darius is a friend of mine. And by the way, happy birthday, Darius. His birthday just passed. So I've sort of been on the ride with him, man. Like, when he's shown flashes of greatness, in the preseason, remember he had that long run, then he got hurt. I'm talking to him and then, last season he goes down again, kind of a freak injury. I'm talking to him again. I'm rooting for the guy. Like Darius, if Darius, he feels like these things have just been bad luck. He doesn't feel like he's an injury-prone player. And with that Redskins backfield being what it is, I mean, it is loaded. There's so many options there in that backfield. I feel like Darius is clearly the best one. And I don't want to put the injury-prone tag on him yet. And maybe, again, that's me not wanting to put that label on a guy who is a friend of mine. But let's see what he could do this year. Because if Darius can avoid injuries, if Darius can play 12, 14 games, he could end up being a steal in a lot of these drafts because he's not going until the middle rounds. And in that offense, I mean, they've got to run it, Glenn, right? I mean, NFC East team, you've got Terry McLaurin and not much else in terms of the wide receiver position there. You got Haskins coming into his second. They're going to have to lean on the run. And Darius Geis, and I don't think I'm saying anything that's too bold here, Darius is the best and most talented running back that they have on that team right now. I love you, Adrian Peterson, but you're like 35 years old. You're going to the Hall of Fame. Darius is the best player they have in that backfield.
Well, I will tell you that I certainly have learned not to doubt Adrian Peterson. We had him on Colton the Wolfman. He's the guy's just made of stone, but I get your point about Darius Geis, and you never root for injuries. So we're certainly rooting for everyone to stay healthy.
Guys who get hurt tend to get hurt again.
It's true, but we're still rooting for him. That's right. So, Randy, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. We appreciate it. Let's go over to Jason Lisk, team rankings. He and Seth Trackman drafting out of the 13 hole. They took a Washington running back with their last pick. That was Antonio Gibson. Do you think Gibson can actually beat out Geis?
Well, first of all, Geis hadn't been able to stay healthy, and so that's a big concern. I mean, I think Geis has shown flashes, but we've seen him play 4 games, right, in the last 2 years. Gibson comes in as, I think, a guy that can be valuable in PPR, even if Geis is getting 65% of the carries, and I think he can still find a role. But there's also some upside there if things just fall apart in that backfield. And I think Gibson, we've seen rookies that being drafted outside that range. I'll remind that a guy named Alvin Kamara was being taken behind Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram, barely draftable his rookie year, and yet broke out and had a huge year. I'm not saying he's going to be that guy. You never know if a guy will be that, but there's the possibility there. There's a path. There's a path if things don't go right with guys.
Good reminder there. Thanks for that. I got it.
Appreciate that. Let me ask you one more quick question here, Jason, and maybe if Fab wants to jump in. Aaron Jones as your first running back. I know he had a monster of a fantasy football season, but he basically was in a split with Jamal Williams, and now they bring in Dillon. You concerned at all about regression there?
Well, I think his touchdown rate will regress no matter what. I mean, he scored a bunch, but that's countered by he was still valuable as a receiver. And I like to look at guys who, what's their rush to reception ratio? His is solid for a feature back. The offense is still there. a lot of rookies that get drafted in that spot, that's for next year, I think, more than this year. I think Dylan's his insurance policy, and Dylan could take touches away from Jamal Williams because I think Jamal Williams isn't going to be there by next year. And so I think I'm confident in Jones in the near term maintaining RB1 status. Maybe not by next year, depending on how things go.
So as a second round pick, I feel like that's about where Aaron Jones should go. If you look at the numbers from last season, you would think he's a first round lock, right. But 19 touchdowns, that's something he's not going to do again. It kind of reminds me, Glenn, you remember when D'Angelo Williams scored 20 touchdowns that one year for the Carolina Panthers, and everyone knew it was never going to happen again, and it didn't happen again. With that being said, Aaron Jones is explosive. He's a guy who's going to average over 5 yards per carry. So if you draft Aaron Jones thinking I get 8 to 10 touchdowns, I'm feeling pretty good, then I feel like, hey, expectations are what they are. If you're drafting him looking for him to be the guy who scored 19 touchdowns, you're going to be disappointed. And I remember 4 of those touchdowns, I believe, came against our beloved Dallas Cowboys in a game that absolutely broke my heart because they kicked our butts in that game. Aaron Jones is a talented guy. I just wish he was in a different situation because every single year it's like Matt LaFleur, well, he's going to use Jamal Williams, and then they draft A.J. Dillon. So who knows if Jones is even going to be in Green Bay past this season?
Yeah, we don't know, but he certainly was great last year. Jason, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Good luck in the end game. Let's see if we can sneak one more interview in here right now. A team that took some very high-profile players, Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, and Rob Gronkowski, the returning hero, if you will. Matt Sposta is going to join us and talk about his team. Matt, you started with Dalvin Cook. You went with Lamar Jackson and then Amari Cooper. 3 pretty good skilled players. How do you feel?
It was interesting. We were pretty set on Kamara, and then Dalvin, was our obvious next choice. Rolled the dice on him. Feel pretty good about it. Lamar was not part of our game plan, but he came to us, and we said, "Hey, why not?" We were planning on, waiting to the third to grab Mahomes, who probably wouldn't have been available at that point. So we were happy to get him in there. And Cooper, is another guy who was a target in the third round. We're happy to get him in his production, so we feel pretty good about it. And then, throughout the draft, we've been filling in with some guys we really like. Derek and I went back and forth on the Lamar, Mark Ingram thing, but I mean, on that high-powered offense, just having the ability to get production out of those 2 guys, I think gives us some firepower and a lot of upside for a points league.
Yeah, Matt, talk about Ingram, because he's a guy who is in 10 or 12 team leagues. I mean, he's being drafted more as a flex starter. You've got him as your RB2. How big of a role do you think J.K. Dobbins is going to play in this offense, and how big of a decline in terms of touchdown opportunities is that going to mean for Mark Ingram?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I felt the same thing last year. Felt like a crowded backfield. Same thing for Dobbins this year. I think there's enough to go around, just given the high-powered offense, and you even saw it last year. You got to trust the big trust, right? So I feel good about it. I think I could even see Damian Williams potentially flexing into that RB2 position. We'll see how things go. In this league, given sort of the 3 wide receiver plus flex in the 1 point PPR, I like having a deep roster of receivers. So I feel good about it.
All right, Matt Sposta picking in the 5-hole, starting with Dalvin Cook, Lamar Jackson, Amari Cooper, building a nice team there. We wish you luck the rest of the way.
Thanks,
we're going to head out to a break, but first we're going to tell you that one of Wolfman's favorite things about fantasy sports is happening right now, and it's a tight end run. We'll tell you about it next on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
2 things.
Clear.
We had a run on Eagles wide receivers there too.
That's true.
Yes. How many times do you see 3 guys at the same position from the same team go back to back to back?
I'll take Mike Quick.
Al Carmichael still sitting there.
I see 2. I see Deshaun and Jeff. Oh, then 2 more players than Dallas got it. Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's gonna be a huge bounce back for
so,
my boys.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, so we had Did you guys see the video of Goddard getting sucker punched?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Goodness.
That was
so
tough.
Are we really at the end of round 11 and Drew Brees is still on the board?
Yes, we are.
Oh, sorry.
I know. I feel like there's things that I want to point out, but then I think, well, if somebody pointed that out and I was in the draft, I would not be happy.
It's
So I'm
not
glad
that
you
hard to
pointed it out
search
and I
the
did
site,
not.
you know, and say
No,
who's the
I
highest.
know. I
rated
get it. I
quarterback.
get it. I get it. I get it. That there's. This is why you wait on quarterbacks, man.
Oh, yeah.
There's some really good ones still out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Big Ben is still out there.
Yep.
A lot of the old guard is out there.
Yeah.
There goes Brady.
Yeah. Ben Roethlisberger. There you go.
Oh, there you go. There's one of them.
How many of you guys will draft players that you think are absolutely horrible human beings like Ben Roethlisberger?
I mean, in the
You
right
don't care,
situation, I don't like it, but I did a league recently where I drafted Roethlisberger because I waited too long on quarterback, and it was really after him, it really was not good. So yeah, I mean, whatever.
I
don't lose points for it. I'll draft him.
That's right.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the actual like bad human being part, I do kind of keep that in the back of my mind when it comes to drafting. But when it comes to like freaking Brady even though he's on the Bucks of the Patriots, it's just I don't know. I think I've gone like 15 years of being able to not draft a New England Patriot, and now Ben's like, oh yeah, get Sony, get Tom Brady, and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll break my vow to my team.
I mean, if Greg Hardy was an offensive player, I might have a hard time pulling the trigger.
Nice.
But,
Good one.
Greg Hardy. Oh, gosh.
Good one.
Wait, so Travis, so like you're a Dolphins guy. So when did you start rooting for Miami? Like from a young age?
30 seconds.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm born in Fort Lauderdale. I live right now. I grew up in Central Florida, so I've been a Dolphins fan since birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you hate that Tannehill was so awesome last year?
Yes.
You're like, oh God,
yes.
Right?
AFC Championship game was I hated it. I hated every bit of it.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Streaming live across the internet on Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association websites. This is the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Our number 3 rolls on. We're into the 12th round of the FSGA Expert American Conference Draft. Glenn Colton with you, along with Hall of Famers Rick Wolf and Michael Fabiano. And if you want to see all of the results, you can check it out at rtsports.com. Go to rtsports.com/FSGA-American, or just go to @SiriusXM Fantasy, and you will see the link there. And remember, if you missed any of the picks at all in this draft or any of our drafts this week, you check it out on the SiriusXM app by searching for Fantasy Drafts. Each night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, there will be a draft, including tomorrow night's Futures Draft. It's going to be very, very interesting, but not talking about future. We're talking about the GOAT, Michael Fabiano, and he doesn't go until the end of the 11th round. If you needed just one sentence that said how deep quarterback is, Tom Brady, end of 11.
It's deep, bro. That's 2 words, but it's this is why I wait. This is why I wait, man. This is and like I get wanting Lamar and I get wanting Mahomes and guys like that, but like Tom Brady is in a position, and he's 43 years old. I understand he's in a position where he could give you 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, probably 8 picks. If Jameis Winston with 30 interceptions can be the QB5, Tom Brady can certainly be the QB10 in this offense with the talent he's got. And then they go out and add Rob Gronkowski, pull him out of semi-retirement or at least wrestling with WWE. So this is, and I feel like I don't want to name some of the other good quarterbacks who are still available because the rest of the guys are going to be like, Fab, stop. I wanted that guy. But if you look at your quarterback sheet, Rick, there's still some really good quarterbacks out there.
I have no problem saying that we're into the 12th round and future Hall of Famers remain out there, including, since we said it on the live stream, Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger. Yes,
we said it.
And the Red Rocket is also out there in case you want to handcuff. But
I want to give a shout out. Can I give a shout out?
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to team rankings because because when you go back to back at a position like tight end there, and you get two guys who have a chance to step up, that I think you protect yourself nice with that. And those are two players that I really like in Eric Ebron and Irv Smith. Smith quietly had a very good end of his season. I think you might see him come out in a big way. And then of course we know Big Ben loves the tight end, and Ebron is, can be successful there. So shout out to team rankings. The Wolfman likes those two.
Yeah, nice. And we talked about it before the break, the tight end run in rounds 10 and 11. There were 6 tight ends to go off the board: Mike Gesicki, Hayden Hurst, Eric Ebron, Austin Hooper, Dallas Goedert, and Noah Fant. Fabs, I have to say that I'm a little bit concerned about Austin Hooper in Cleveland. First of all, there's a lot of mouths to feed. And second of all, he doesn't really have the time to get the camaraderie, if you will, with Baker Mayfield that a lot of the other pass catchers have, including Kareem Hunt.
There's a lot of questions in Cleveland overall. You look at Kevin Stefanski, and I get it. It's a short sample size, right? But he's never had a wide receiver average more than 14.5 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues. Adam Thielen just barely averaged double digits in Stefanski's offense. And he likes to run the 12. So you're going to see Njoku, and you're going to see some Austin Hooper as well. But Hooper's ceiling took a massive hit. I mean, last year he had 90-plus targets, didn't play all season, missed a couple of games due to injuries, and he was still – at one point he was the best tight end in fantasy football. And that's why a lot of people are all in on Hayden Hurst, right? DFS Karma take Hurst and as their number one tight end, which could end up being a really good pick. So, when you're looking at this position, and there's still some guys out there, and a guy who may end up playing, who plays for a team of the jerseys that Glenn and I are wearing. There's that guy out there
Here
too.
We go again.
So basically, listen, the position has gotten deep, and that's why Austin Hooper really fell in this draft, because the ceiling took a hit. He's got, I don't know what kind of camaraderie or rapport he's got with Baker Mayfield because of the coronavirus. I don't know how much they've actually, had, pass and catch situations. I know this, and I've talked to Austin Eckler about this and some other NFL players. This season is going to start off really slow statistically, guys, because we are in unprecedented sort of situations where guys have not really worked out with each other during OTAs. There hasn't been OTAs. We're hopefully going to start training camp around the 28th of July. And a lot of these guys going out there week one, there may be only going to be 2 preseason games. A lot of these guys, and you talk about Austin Hooper, going to be playing with new teams, are going to be playing with rookie quarterbacks, whatever the case may be. There's going to be bigger growing pains than there's ever been in the NFL.
Hall of Fame analysis from Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano. Appreciate that. Fab, let's continue on talking to our competitors. We've got 12 rounds in the books for Team Fantasy Sherpa. Scott Swaney will join us. He's turning around right now on the live stream. He started his draft with Derrick Henry and then added Julio Jones, David Johnson, and Raheem Mostert. And then Michael Gallup, Julian Edelman, and Russell Wilson to fill out the first 7 rounds. Scott, always a pleasure to talk to you. You have to like the way your team started out with Derrick Henry and Julio Jones, 2 guys who, as long as they stay healthy, are going to put up monster numbers.
I was actually planning to go running back with the first 3 picks, as you had alluded to at the beginning of the show. But then when Julio Jones was out there still in round 2, I figured I should try to be flexible and see what happened. And I'm pretty happy with the guys I got in round 3 and 4 at running back.
So you've taken 2 quarterbacks already, right? Russell Wilson's your guy at QB1. You took my favorite sleeper quarterback, Daniel Jones, there. Now you took a second quarterback before some teams had taken even their first quarterback. Is that part of the Rick Wolf strategy? Basically, take guys from other teams so they're not their teams are just not as strong? Or do you legitimately really think Daniel Jones could end up being a big-time fantasy star this season?
No offense to Rick, but it's more the latter. I just like his upside a lot and figured, Russell Wilson's pretty sturdy, but heaven forbid if he gets injured or, is sidelined with coronavirus, I've got a high upside guy behind him.
All right. The voice of the Sherpa, of course, Scott Swaney, one of my faves. And despite the fact that he just dissed me, I'll survive that. You have a lot of players projected at a lot of points. How much of a slave are you to projections when you're selecting players, or is there some other calculation you make, upside or safety? How do you when you go to pick your players, is it about sheer points?
In the early rounds, it's more about, the expected points and also hopefully minimizing the variance or standard deviation there. And then as I get, further on into the draft, when I've got solid guys filling out the starting lineup, then trying to, fill in the reserve spots with some guys that I think, have a high standard deviation or, high upside.
All right. Well,
19 guys on the live stream just got confused.
Well, the Sherpa's been successful for a reason, because sometimes, like just now, he could talk over my head. But Scott's always been a good competitor, a good guy. We always appreciate you coming on the air, and good luck with the end game, Scott.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's get in one more interview with one of our competitors. Let's go to the Yahoo Sports team. Michael Graven is out there. He started his draft with Alvin Kamara, George Kittle, James Conner, TJ Chark, and of course, $31 million man, Dak Prescott. Michael, how hard did you actually think about, your pick between Kamara, Cook, and maybe even Michael Thomas?
So to be honest, there's actually three of us talking about this right now. We got Joe here as well, and one more behind the scenes, and Michael Lazarus. And I think the three of us just kind of came to the consensus that Kamara would be our first guy. We knew on the turn, on our second pick, we wanted to target Kittle, and we were really, really happy that he fell to us. And then for our third pick, where we were looking for an RB2 with so many running backs going off the board so quickly, we were really in a tough spot. And this is kind of something that bit us last year. We really didn't want to get in a spot where we didn't have a second running back. We struggled with that a little bit last year, and ultimately ended up costing us in our championship matchup. So so we ended up going Connor. We have high hopes that the Pittsburgh offense will be able to function this year, and with Ben back and Connor will hopefully be a solid RB2 for us. But that did leave us a little thin on when it came to wide receivers going forward. And so we've taken a couple gambles here, but we think as we go through the season, we'll be able to hopefully shore up our team and be able to get into the playoffs, hopefully.
So hindsight is 20/20 in fantasy football and everything else. And George Kittle is one of the two best tight ends in fantasy football. And you had just mentioned, you really like having him on the team. But when you look back now, you could have gotten, say, Allen Robinson, Kenny Galladay, DJ Moore as your number one, and had Chark as your number two, and then gotten potentially an Evan Engram, a Hunter Henry, a Gronk to be your tight end one somewhere in the 7th or 8th round. So do you question going after Kittle in the second round, or you're pretty solid with that?
I think we're pretty solid with that. Given that Deebo, is injured and we don't, know what's going to happen there, we think Kittle will still play a large role in the 49er offense. And he really, paid off for us pretty well last year. And as we've talked about previously, if you don't get Kittle or Kelsey as a top tight end, I mean, you're taking a gamble of the kind of the remaining tight ends. Certainly there's a few there that you could pencil in that it would be, suffice, good enough for your team to. But I don't know. We were really solid on Kittle, like I said earlier on in our plan, and that was our target. We were glad he fell to us.
Excellent. Fantastic stuff there. So we got a few numbers here. So because you have Prescott, who scores a lot of points, you do have a good number of players in their 170 to 180 range and 2,256 total points. But the interesting thing is 880 targets on this team. So lots and lots of targets coming your way for sure.
Yep, and that's what we were all definitely thinking about. PPR, man.
Good stuff. And while we were talking to you, your team made 2 picks. That's very, very impressive. Michael and the guys at Yahoo, good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, guys.
The draft is getting into the end game in round 12. 3 surefire first ballot Hall of Famers go off the board. Not 1, not 2, but 3. And we'll tell you who they are when the coverage by Colton, the Wolfman, and Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano on SiriusXM continues. It is the American Conference of the FSGA Experts Draft.
Clear.
All right.
Blake Jarwin's.
I saw it.
Yeah, how does Blake Jarwin go? What the heck is wrong with you guys?
All right.
What are you talking
Wolfman, I'll be right.
Glenn froze up on us.
Yeah, no, I think he just made a
it?
trip down the hall, I think.
You guys don't like Blake Jarwin? What's wrong with Blake Jarwin?
Dance.
I'm
with
just
me.
joking
Let me
because he's a
tell the
cowboy.
joke. Smile.
I'm just exhausted.
Show like you're
Just
actually like
exhausted.
having a good time here, huh? I'm like the bar mitzvah hype man here in the room. So come on, everybody up, and we're gonna put Aunt Sophie on the chair. We're gonna bend down, turn around the room, huh? Nobody.
Oh boy.
I don't have an Aunt Sophie, so I wouldn't know about.
I actually did have an Aunt Sophie.
Nobody's got jokes.
I had an Aunt Sophie.
No jokes. What joke? What do you want? Rodney Dangerfield or something? You know what the joke is? There's so many Cowboys drafted. Stop drafting Cowboys.
What? Hey, you know, Rams Cowboys out here, week 1, buddy.
Yeah, no. Is it week 1?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I can't.
I think it's the first Sunday night game.
Yeah. Will there be fans?
Huh?
Will there be fans, or am I going to sit in your living room?
I don't know. I mean, hey, if there's no home field, then advantage Cowboys at least in that game.
I don't think there's
Yeah,
going
I
to be
guess.
fans, unfortunately.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
I'm a 49ers fan. They're coming to New York weeks 2 and 3, and I'm not going to be able to go to either game. And it's breaking my heart by the day.
They're playing versus Jets, then versus Giants.
Yeah, I think Giants
Both at-
first, then
both
Jets.
at
Yeah.
MetLife.
All right.
Yep, both at MetLife. Yep. And they're going to be. They should win both games, and I'm not going to be able to go to either one.
Because no one's going to be there.
I figure. I don't know. I'm hopeful, man, but I'm not buying tickets yet.
By the way, everybody must have run around here because I think.
Everything got mixed up because my Zoom actually closed out and then reopened, and then it was all shuffled all over the
It
place.
happens all the
Mine
time.
did
Like
too.
every break, it
did
shuffles.
shut itself down.
No, this hasn't.
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden, like I was next to
I'm in the same
Fabiano.
spot.
We were in our jerseys. It was all good. Now he's like,
I'm
Yeah,
in the
now-
same spot.
Now I'm next to Wolf.
not on mine. You're next to Randy and below Ben on mine.
Yeah, see, I'm next to Wolf here, and Barry and Corey are in the Brady Bunch boxes over here with me.
Oh, funny, I can't see anybody.
Thanks for having me.
And I look down, look to the right. Okay,
I know,
he's
right?
over there.
Like I'm covering Korean baseball.
All right, 10 seconds.
Of course, we're talking about as much about the game as they do.
Yeah, not like you have anything that sits in the stands there.
Tom Brady is now in Tampa Bay. Todd Gurley went to Atlanta, and DeAndre Hopkins was sent to Arizona.
Back in the end zone. Caught by Hopkins. Touchdown.
Find out where you should draft all the players in new homes during the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
We are into round 13 of the American Conference FSGA draft. Coming up, a half hour left in our coverage. See that in-game come through. And if you want to know how deep and how knowledgeable our experts are, they don't fall for anything. They let the values come to them. And 3 different teams went with surefire Hall of Famers in round 12. Larry Fitzgerald, Adrian Peterson, and Drew Brees all go in round 12. Michael Fabiano, which one of those old guard who's headed for Canton is going to be a value in fantasy football this year?
Well, I mean, like based on where they're getting drafted, I would think that they're all going to be values, right? I mean, Drew Brees, it's crazy. Like Aaron Rodgers has been forever the top quarterback in fantasy football until he wasn't last season, right? And so to see him go this late is sort of shocking, right? I mean, Matthew Stafford's going ahead of him, Josh Allen's going ahead of him, which we sort of all expect. And then the Packers, by the way, did the guy no favors whatsoever during the offseason. Don't add anybody except for Devin Funchess and AJ Dillon, who is not a wide receiver. Let's put it that way. So I have Rodgers up there. I have Brees very close. I have Brady. They're all sort of in that same tier. But I really feel like the offseason helped Brady the most, though, right? Because if he was in New England, and Rick, you can jump in here too. If Tom Brady stayed in New England, he's not even draftable in a 10-team league, right? But in Tampa Bay, he's potentially a top 10 player.
Yeah, I mean, we have him higher at quarterback than a lot of people do. Glenn and I have been talking about a lot about how he's a guy we target in these late spots because he just keeps dropping and dropping. And, he's still Tom Brady. Maybe he won't throw the ball as deep downfield, but he's going to churn up yards because that's what the guy does.
And look, Bruce Arians is not afraid of chucking the rock, right? No risk it, no biscuit. He let Jameis Winston throw the ball, irrespective of which team it was going to. So I agree with you. I'm high on Brady as well.
Can I mention something I find interesting right now?
If you have to.
Yeah, it's interesting for this time of the draft, I think.
Fire away.
We already have 6 teams who took defenses. Generally, you don't see sort of the defense run. You see maybe one or two. Maybe you'll see 49ers and Bears. Maybe you see 49ers and Steelers. But generally, you don't see that until the second to last round. And we've seen almost half of the teams already take a defense. And I want to ask if either one of you guys is surprised. I am.
Yeah, I am. Because I don't care what kind of draft I'm in, unless it's the weirdest scoring system in the world that favors defenses like crazy. One of my last 2 picks is going to that position.
Yeah, actually, our strategy, I agree with you. But what we've done is we've gone in a 16-teamer rounds 14 and 15 with the kicker and the defense, because round 16 is just going to be some flyer that, we just happen to, really like. Actually, yesterday in the draft coverage here on the channel, we went Adrian Peterson in round 16. He was still sitting there. Why not? And that reminds me, folks, there are drafts every single night at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Tomorrow night is the Futures Draft. And if you missed any, go to the SiriusXM app, look up Fantasy Drafts, and you can hear all the analysis and all of the draft picks. We have made an effort also to talk to each of our competitors, get a look at their strategies, get inside the minds of the experts. And now we're going to go over to the guys from Prize Picks. We'll go to Dylan Cooper here. They had a different strategy than most. Everyone went running back. They started with Michael Thomas and Travis Kelce, and their running backs are Le'Veon Bell, Cam Akers, and Ronald Jones. I think that filled out pretty well for you, Dylan. You got to be pretty excited about that backfield, considering it's rounds 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I would say of the 3, Ronald Jones is actually my favorite. I am not a Keyshawn Vaughn guy at all. I don't think he's going to get any run. I don't think he's good at all. So I think Ronald Jones, if he gets 70% of the carries, somebody there is going to catch balls. I think it's going to be him as well. So I think he's my favorite of the picks. I wasn't hoping to do receiver tight end first, but it just kind of fell to me at pick 7 and then at pick 21 that I just had to pick those top guys.
Dylan, out of the wide receivers that you've picked, you've got Will Fuller, Sterling Shepard, Michael Pittman, Mecole Hardman, and then T. Higgins. Which one of those guys do you feel like is going to end up being your most reliable number 2 wide receiver during the course of the season?
I think if Will Fuller stays healthy, I think it's going to be him. I'm not excited about any of the other Texans receivers, and Watson's going to have to throw it to somebody. So I think I'm pretty high on him. I think Hardman, Pittman are kind of unreliable but have high upside. Shepard should catch 5 balls a game, but he's not going to do a whole lot. So I'm hoping Michael Thomas and Fuller are going to be the guys this year.
So Dylan, you want to hear something good?
Let's hear it.
With two rounds left, you right now are edging out the Sherpa 2,627.8 points to 2,627.3 points. So that sounded like Don Adams.
Yeah,
that's great news, right?
2,623 points.
Would you believe?
Would you believe a fireman and his dog? But yes, you're slightly out playing there, and we look forward to the rest of your draft.
All right. Thank you so much, Dylan. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. Before we go over to the guys from Fantasy Data, Fabs, Antonio Brown off the board in round 14. Is there any chance he returns value in 2020?
Yeah, why not take it? I've seen him taken late more in the best ball world than I have in the redraft world. But, we've heard reports that Seattle and the Ravens are both talking about it, right? So at this point in such a deep league, why not? Steven Sims just got drafted. So why not take a chance on Antonio Brown? Even if he comes back and is suspended for the first 8 games, because there's likely going to be some sort of NFL discipline when he does come back. You have one of the greatest wide receivers in fantasy football history, and you got him very late in your draft. And you know what? If no one signs him and after a few weeks you decide, it's not worth keeping anymore, then you dump him. But at the point in drafts where he's going, I say, why not, man? Go for the gusto.
All right. Michael Fabiano saying good job to the folks from the Crown League. Let's go over to the folks from Fantasy Data. Not sure who's going to join us. Probably Dustin, I think.
That's Barry.
It's Barry. I got it wrong. Barry Golumbic joining us from Fantasy Data. You guys started off. You were aggressive, jumped up a couple of spots to get Joe Mixon. We like that pick.
Yeah.
And then went Mike Evans, Melvin Gordon, DK Metcalf, T.Y. Hilton, Keyshawn Vaughn, Evan Ingram, and your quarterback being Carson Wentz. A lot of interesting picks there, but the one I really like is DK Metcalf. Such a monster second half, big playoffs, big body, big play receiver. You pair him with Evans and Hilton, you got the young guy, the two veterans. I like it. How do you feel?
Really good. We went into this draft just trying to get guys that we felt confident about, not take as many reaches, although we did go, a little higher on Mixon than I think we might have anticipated. But looking at this team, look at who the quarterbacks are throwing to these guys. I think Gordon's got something to prove in Denver, staying in the same division. In the AFC West, he's going to play them twice. I'm looking forward to him facing the Chargers when he does. And, try to make the decision-making process as easy as possible on us. And then with Jackson and Ruggs, I think I'm getting the veteran version of the rookie. So if Jackson stays healthy, I think that's great for the Birds. We're Eagles fans here at Fantasy Data. And if he doesn't,
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we're the smart ones on the stream.
So now you got Wolf going. By the way, Barry, I love the website. So Barry hooked me up on Fantasy Data, and the password that he gave me for the website was like Carson Wentz or something like that.
Wentz
so
rules.
he definitely did that on purpose because he knows that I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. But I want to that being said, love the site. I want to get back to your team here. So you went Mixon. I like Mixon. You got Gordon as your 2. Your wide receivers at the top are Evans, Metcalf, and Hilton. All good. Keyshawn Vaughn is your 3. Good. So you went on a wide receiver run there of Anderson, Ruggs, and Jackson, Deshaun Jackson, that is, and you waited at running back. So your 4th running back is Jerick McKinnon. What made you decide to go with that 3 wide receiver run rather than mix in a couple of running backs there?
It's almost like a reverse 0 running back ideal, right? We went pretty high with Mixon and feel good about Gordon. So at that point, I feel like you can get running backs based off of matchups, based off of who gets injured. There's always guys that shows up. Whereas wide receivers, the way the draft had gone early, you kind of got the sense that people were going to go heavy with wide receivers in the middle of the draft. So I wanted to make sure that we had the depth there and then try to pick up running backs, as the season progresses, because I think that they present more value as the year goes on than necessarily wide receivers will.
All right.
Excellent.
Really appreciate it. Wolfman, you got a question for Barry or just?
No, I just have to tell him that I hope that he gets one more wide receiver because he is so close to 1,000 targets that it would be nice to see him get 1,000 targets before it's over.
All right. Nice work, Barry. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us and good luck just finishing it out in the last couple of rounds.
Thank you.
All right. We are into round 15. It's a 16-round draft. Glenn Colton, Michael Fabiano, Rick Wolf with you. Fabs, one thing I wanted to point out to you, you talked about the depth of the quarterback position. Well, one team, the CBS team, waited until round 14 to take their first quarterback. It's the stash Gardner Minshew. We can debate whether it was worth waiting that long to get a quarterback, but, where do you come out on the 6th rounder who was a bit of a surprise after Nick Foles got hurt last year?
Listen, he had some really good games. And then, you had that game in London over there where he was throwing picks and just he was awful. He lost the job to Nick Foles and eventually would get it back. Minshew has got some Tony Romo in him. All right, go ahead, Rick, throw up. But that's the comparison to me. He's got a little Tony
Dez
Romo
caught
in
it,
him, man.
Love him.
And you've got Chark, you've got Westbrook, you've got some weapons there. They added Laviska Shenault in the draft. So like the Jaguars offense, I don't know if the Jaguars are going to be really good from a real football perspective, but they could be a fun team to watch. They add Chris Thompson out of the backfield as a pass catcher, so they could be a fun team to watch. Now, I'm not saying that I'd be comfortable if I were CBS, with Minshew as my QB1. And now you see what they're doing. They just drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, so they're trying to maybe go after that position, add some depth there, which they need to. To me, it would have been 10th round, 11th round, where I'm starting to look, rather than maybe get N'Keal Harry, I'm getting a quarterback at that point, because, Breeze was there. Daniel Jones, just been drafted. There was some, Tom Brady was still there as well. So, but that's a little bit deeper than I'm going to wait on a quarterback. But I mean, the overall roster construction here outside of that position is pretty good. And those wide receivers look very good.
Yeah, and they decided to go. Go ahead, Wolfman.
You said Minshew was like Romo. Did he fumble a field goal attempt in a playoff game? I don't remember that.
Number one. I don't care who you ask. The Seahawks lubed up that football. That was the shiniest football I've ever seen in a football game ever.
It lubed up a football.
Okay.
The genius of Michael Fabiano. I love it.
Somebody cut that clip and send it out right now.
They lubed up the football. The thing that nobody remembers about that play is he picks up the ball and he starts to run. If he just looks up, there's a wide open receiver, but there's a wide open receiver. All he has to do is flip the ball forward, which is, of course, much easier watching on TV from 3,000 miles away. We're having some fun in the FSGA American Conference Experts Football Draft. Hall of Famers Rick Wolf and Michael Fabiano joining me, Glenn Colton. We get back. We'll tie up the rest of the draft. We'll talk to you about which draft picks we like the most, which teams we think are really strong, and get you ready for the rest of the drafts that are coming up right here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 7 p.m. every single day, including the Futures Draft tomorrow. Don't go away. We're going to close this out in style, and the Wolfman's going to howl on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Clear.
I'm going to wear my Cowboys hat for this segment just for you, Wolf.
Excellent.
Nice. And they definitely will howl.
Look at that.
By the way, there's a future Hall of Fame quarterback that still hasn't been drafted, unless I missed it.
How Jimmy Garoppolo went.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy, did you guys see there was photos all over Twitter of like Garoppolo's like female that like they have some kind of app. Did you see that, Barry? I see you shaking your head at that.
I'm in like 10 text chains, and every single one that sent it out was like, damn, Garoppolo's hot. It was kind of upsetting.
I did a double take and I was like, oh, that's Garoppolo? What? Yeah, that was crazy. There was a few of them floating around.
Yeah, they tried it with baseball players and it didn't get as much traction from what I saw.
Yeah,
he's a handsome man and a good looking.
There was one, oh gosh, I can't. There was a bunch of like Jerry O'Connell, like they did one of him too. That was kind of funny. There was one out there of him, but I can't remember who else it was. There was another one, and it'll come to me. But I thought that was pretty funny.
You mean Jerry O'Connell, like Stand By Me, Jerry O'Connell?
Yeah, that's my guy, man. I love Jerry.
He's a big fantasy player. The Hollywood Football League. You play in that? The Garner League?
No. He's in a couple of leagues that 2 leagues that I run. But yeah, he's the best. He's awesome. He's been on my show already a couple of times. So
seems super cool.
Really nice guy. Yeah, he's the best.
They somehow managed to transpose Wentz's acne onto his female doppelganger, which was a real nice touch, I thought.
There was a Wentz double. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, you didn't want to.
No. Okay.
Hey guys, I'm seeing an email from Digger here. It says that CBS is not allowed to take Garoppolo. You need to draft a defense and a kicker.
Oh. Okay. We didn't last year. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm getting from Digger right there. So if before Jason takes his team now,
20 seconds, guys.
You guys want to grab somebody and I'll make the change?
Yeah, sure. Just give us, I don't know, Saints D, whoever looks like they're the next best D. So just give us them.
Okay. Randy and or Travis, do you guys have interest in Jimmy Garoppolo?
I already have 2
How do the
quarterbacks.
stud receivers stack up behind Saints wideout Michael Thomas this year?
Here's Julio. Jones is open. Down the far sideline and will score. Oh, my heavens. There you go, Atlanta.
Find out by listening to the FSGA Fantasy Football Experts Draft on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
We are in the final round of the FSGA American Conference Fantasy Football Experts Draft here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. It has been fun to bring you all the action. Glenn Colton, Michael Fabiano, and Rick Wolf. you want to see any of those results, you can go to our Twitter feed at SiriusXM Fantasy or over to rtsports.com/FSGA-American. You can also hear all of the action from today's draft or any of the drafts all week long here on SiriusXM Fantasy. We're live at 7 p.m. Eastern with the broadcast, but you can check it out on the SiriusXM app by searching for Fantasy Drafts. And of course, if you want to hear me and Rick Wolf on the radio, in a typical week, we are on from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on every Tuesday night, right after the great Michael Fabiano and fellow Cowboy fan Lisa Ann. They do Fantasy Dirt on Tuesdays from 7 to 9, also Fantasy Dirt on Fridays, 7 to 9 p.m. Fabs, this has been a lot of fun. You really got to just admire that people went after the players they want, jumped up, got Joe Mixon early, go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire early, decide you want your quarterback, Lamar Jackson. What's your just big takeaway now of, let's say, an early draft, but not crazy early this day and age to draft in June?
I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you wait on running backs, you're going to be hurting unless you hit a home run to somebody off the waiver wire. You really are. And, we saw that just running backs just went rampant. I mean, McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, Cook, Mixon, all before Michael Thomas, who's coming off of one of the great seasons of any fantasy wide receiver. And then following him, Sanders, Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The running back position, it might be more important than it's ever been before from a fantasy perspective. And, guys, we've been playing for so long, we can remember, drafting the guys like Marshall Faulk and Emmitt Smith, and those kind of guys. When running back, there was featured backs all over the league. Now, not only has the position become deeper, it's become younger, and there's so many good options out there. People are not waiting to eat up that position. So keep this in mind, guys, when you're drafting, go after those running backs. I promise you, wide receivers are going to be out there at 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round. There's going to be some really good wide receivers out there. I mean, in this draft, A.J. Brown didn't go until the 4th round. That just proves that position is very deep and that the running back position is the one that you're going to need to target in the first 3 rounds.
Michael Fabiano giving the information. Wolfman, we want to get to the last team we haven't talked to. So hit us up with some knowledge, and then we'll get over to Sports Info Solutions.
I was going to say, I got 3 things today. One is as a quarterback today, you're Staubach and not Romo, thankfully. And Mike Fabiano is a fantastic analyst and ball buster because he added a Cowboys hat now.
Yeah,
to really stick it to me. I saw him touch it like 19 times in the last 2 minutes, so I know he's like sticking it to me on purpose. So just really glad to have shared the mics with you guys today. It certainly was a lot of fun, and it was a great draft today.
See, I look at Fabs in all of his cowboy gear, his hat, his old school Tony Dorsett jersey, and I'm reminded of the movie Dave, where Kevin Kline looks at the other Kevin Kline and goes, "You are a handsome man." We're having a lot of fun here.
Listen, unfortunately for the rest of the world, there's just a lot of Cowboys fans out there. So from all over the place.
This is certainly true. Cowboys fans everywhere and football fans and fantasy football fans everywhere. And we're thankful for all of you listening here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And as promised, we will get to interview the last of the owners we haven't talked to. That's Sports Info Solutions. And Corey March, I believe, is with us wearing his Jets hat. Respect that. You guys did the plan of 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds: Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, and Devin Singletary, along with a number 1 receiver in Devontae Adams. You got to be happy about that start.
Yeah, absolutely. And good job saving the best for last. Rick, I love you, but if we're not number 1 in your projections, you got to rework those.
There you go. A little smack talk.
Grub, Jacobs, Carson, Singletary. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 in broken tackle percentage, according to Sports Info Solutions. So, nice shameless plug there. Got Devontae Adams and stacked him with Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be plenty of double dipping going on there. Happy with where we're at.
2 things.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a problem in managing your clubhouse when you start Baker Mayfield over Aaron Rodgers. That could be a problem.
That's probably true. I'm still holding on to my prediction that Baker Mayfield is for MVP. Maybe that'll be this year.
Can't even count. He can't even figure out whether it's the third stall or the fourth stall. No,
that is a bold take, my friend.
It is breaking down. Fabs, what do you think of this team?
Yeah, so I like the running backs for sure. Devin Singletary, I think, is a flex, as good. Chris Carson is a 2. If Deontay Johnson becomes what like everyone in the industry is predicting, then you're going to be tough to beat. Let's put it that way. Jarvis Landry, a lot of mouths to feed in Cleveland, still good for 70 catches at the wide receiver position. But I feel like Deontay Johnson and even Anthony Miller, if those two guys hit, if you hit on those two players, you're going to be in good shape. And I can't say anything bad about Corey here because I dig the Jets hat. That's the Jets logo that should be on the sides of those helmets right now. Those are the Kenny O'Brien, Freeman McNeil, Al Toon days, Wesley Walker back in the days, the great time. But I do like this team, and I like the fact that you got Adams in the second round where you did. That was a great bargain.
All right. Well, listen, Corey, thanks so much for spending some time with us, and we look forward to you sending Jamal Adams over to our Cowboys. So thank you for that.
yeah, gift wrap him. We're waiting.
But really, great job, and thanks for spending some time with us, and good luck during the season. All right, we've got a couple of minutes left here. Just a quick last-minute hot take. I will tell you that I am with Fabs about the wide receivers being deep, but if there's ever a lesson in a 14-team league, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, and Drew Lock go in the 13th round. You ever wanted to know quarterback you can wait? The lesson's been learned. Wolfman.
There you go. No, my hot take is just the whole draft experience. You know, the Fantasy Alarm team led by Howard Bender did a fantastic job here. Matt Sells producing all of these things in conjunction with RT Sports, who of course delivers everything and is a great sponsor of our show, rtsports.com/Wolfman. And also the FSGA for putting their shoulder against the mountain and bringing together a nice broadcast here.
Yeah, my hot take is that SiriusXM just doing a tremendous job. All the guys behind the scenes always just kill it. And I'm so proud to be a part of this now. And I can't wait to do another show with you, Rick. I just can't wait. And hopefully, Glenn and I will do the show and we'll talk about the history of the Dallas Cowboys and how, we beat up on the Eagles a bunch of times, beat up on the Rams a bunch of times, this kind of thing. Have a little fun. But you guys are a lot of fun. Everybody in the draft did a great job. Kudos to all.
Kudos to all indeed. Thanks to the Fantasy Alarm folks, the RT Sports folks, and all the folks behind the glass at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. It has been an honor to work with you, Michael Fabiano and Rick Wolf. Have a great time. Enjoy fantasy football. SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
10.